Everyone. So, while a couple years ago, I did a Blu-ray collection tour, Blu-ray, DVD, 4K. That's way out of date by now. Because I'm mostly a movie guy, so that made sense to do. And then I ended up on TikTok because I don't own that many. I did a tour of my collection of vinyl records because I don't have that many. So that would make more sense for TikTok versus YouTube. But I was thinking, I have a lot of CDs. I don't buy CDs anymore. I think the last time I bought a CD was maybe like 2012. I think it was before I moved down to the state I live in now. But I started I started buying CDs as my main music format in the early 90s. Like, the first CD I ever bought was the Lion King soundtrack, so you'll see that later. That was, 94 or something? So between, 1994 and, 2012, I bought a lot of CDs. And I thought it might be fun just to go down memory lane and look at my CD collection. Also, since this was mostly from the 90s and early 2000s, how many of these people have been canceled now? I don't know. So, anyway, we'll start. This is a CD tower. I usually keep it in my home office, just brought it out here to film. I have some CDs on here, and then I have this big, case on the floor that I'll pull out more as we go along. I'll probably have to film this in a couple different segments, but we'll just start at the top. This was Godsmack's debut self-titled album. I got back in... I've always had a problem with the nu metal label just being applied to any hard rock from the late 90s and early 2000s, because originally, during that time, nu metal very specifically meant hard rock or metal that incorporated rap lyrics. So that was like a Limp Bizkit or a Linkin Park, those kind of bands. Godsmack is more along the lines of Metallica or something like in the hard rock vein, but pretty much any hard rock from that era is now dubbed nu metal. Kind of lost that label fight. But as far as those quote-unquote nu metal bands are, Godsmack was definitely my favorite in high school and then early in college. Godsmack was one of the first concerts I ever went to, and I have a tattoo on my chest, which is the Punisher skull in the center of the Godsmack tribal sun, so obviously they're big now. I haven't listened to anything new they've put out in forever, if they even are putting things out, but I must have listened to this album billions of times as a teenager. This was definitely formative in my character building years there. And then I also have Godsmack's second album, Awake. Godsmack's I want to say their first 3 albums were pretty consistent in quality, but the first 2 are the ones that I probably listened to the most. And I think, when I saw them in concert, it was this when they were promoting the third album, which I think is here, yeah. So I have Godsmack there as well. And then, their third album was Faceless, which has this sort of Freddy Krueger coming out of the wall or Jake Busey and the Frighteners thing going on in the cover. This was around the time they were also starting to do promotions with the U.S. military, so I think that's when I started not liking them as much, as my politics went a lot more radically left after that. But yeah, there's still some good stuff on here. I mean, I Stand Alone from the Scorpion King movie, if anyone remembers that. And then I think this rounds out the Godsmack I own. I might have one more in the case, but this was their acoustic EP, so it's only 7 songs. I think it's mostly new stuff, but they also have, I guess it's half new songs and half of them are acoustic covers of songs they already have on there. Not bad for an acoustic album. Though I do remember I went to buy this specifically at Circuit City, a store that no longer exists, because they were supposed to give away a free pin or something with it, and they claimed they were sold out, but I think the employee was just too lazy to go look for it. Next, we have one of my all-time favorite musical artists. If Godsmack wasn't my first concert, then Lisa Loeb was my first concert. I saw both of them in very close proximity in the early 2000s. But Lisa Loeb, always been a huge fan of Lisa Loeb. Always had a huge crush on her since I was 10 and this album came out. But yeah, she had the song Stay on the Reality Bites soundtrack. Ethan Hawke famously directed a music video for it. And then she eventually got a record deal because Stay was the first #1 single for an unsigned artist. Her record was later beaten by Thrift Shop by Macklemore, as far as like the best-selling single from an unsigned artist or whatever. But yeah, kind of like Godsmack, I spent so much time like over and over again listening to the songs on this. Well, at first I owned a cassette single of Stay, which had like two different versions of the song on it. But eventually I got all of her albums. I think I own, well, I might not, there's maybe a couple kids albums and a couple like weird bootleg ones I don't own, but otherwise I think I own almost all of Lisa Loeb's albums. But this was her first one, and I'd hesitate, but yeah, it's probably the best. Between her first and second were the two that she had under major labels. Sometimes people call her a one-hit wonder, but she was actually a two-hit wonder. She had obviously Stay on this album, then she had a song called I Do on her second album, and I think that one charted as well. But I'll let Todd in the Shadows do a video on that at some point. And then her second album was Firecracker. This had a lot of really good songs on it too. This was a kind of a sadder album, so various times in my life where I went through breakups, I listened to this album a whole hell of a lot. Yeah. And then there was like a very, very long time between her second and her third album. Like, had no idea what was going on, but eventually she released her third album in the early 2000s. Their copyright on this, 2002, 2003-ish. It's called Cake and Pie. This is also around the time where she had a one-season reality show on E! Where she was trying to date, because for the longest time she was in a long-term relationship with Dweezil Zappa, and then that didn't work out, and then she ended up meeting someone who worked in the music department of Conan O'Brien's show, and she got married to him, which was odd because Lisa Loeb would always appear on Craig Kilborn's show and not Conan O'Brien's. Remember Craig Kilborn? Does anybody remember him? I still really like a lot of stuff on this album, though, too, even though this was probably past her like really 90s heyday. But there was some great stuff on there. Then I guess she had a dispute with the record label here, what was A&M, so she more or less released the same album, but slightly different, as Hello Lisa a couple years later. It has a lot of the same songs, and then it has a couple, like maybe one or two different songs on here. I think Underdog was there, so this was by a small thing called Artemis Records. Who knows if they even exist anymore. But yeah, even though it's fundamentally the same goddamn album, I still bought it again anyway, because it had a couple new things. And then one of her more underrated albums came out after that, which was The Way It Really Is, which I really like this album too. I like all her albums, obviously. I'm still a huge fan of hers. But there was some great stuff on here. Would You Wander is a great song. Lucky Me, yeah. This is from a different independent album, Zoe Records, I guess. But yeah. I have more, but they're not in the tower. And then shifting again, we got Rob Zombie's Hellbilly Deluxe. I don't own any White Zombie albums, but I really got into Rob Zombie's solo career after that. But I mean, Dragula, Living Dead Girl. I mean, if you liked a certain strain of hard rock or heavy metal in the late 90s, early 2000s, then you were probably a Rob Zombie fan. So I had that one. And then I had, what is this? The Sinister Urge, which I think was his second solo album. This had the House of a Thousand Corpses song on it, because I think this was released around the time where he had shot the movie for Universal, but it was dropped by Universal because after Columbine, there was like a year period where everyone was against violent movies, and that hurt some stuff. Then MGM picked it up, and then Rob Zombie made a joke about that, and so MGM dropped it, and eventually Lionsgate picked it up, and it took like 3-4 years for the movie to finally be released. So not as good as Hellbilly Deluxe, but there's still some good stuff on here. Feel So Numb might be the best song on here. I don't know. And then we get already to Problematic People. We got Disturbed's The Sickness. I mean, this had a lot of songs that were big on alt-rock radio at the time, mostly Stupefy and Down with the Sickness, obviously. So David Draymond in recent years has kind of been revealed to be a giant Zionist, so he's not very well liked anymore. I still think he's a good vocalist. He has a very unique voice, but But he's kind of a dick, so. But I still like the music. I mean, unless he had like a song that was like, I love Israel or something, it's a little easy to separate the art for the artist there. And then I don't know which album of Disturbed's this is, but it's called Believe. I don't know what order it comes in. I have a couple others. They might be somewhere else. This one, this has a couple of good songs on it, but it's not as good as their first album, so I haven't listened to it as much. Seether. Seether was a great band that I still think is a little underrated. This was Disclaimer 2, which I don't think this is a greatest hits album. I think it's mostly a re-release of their first album with like extra tracks on it after they started to blow up with they did a different version of their song Broken that had Amy Lee from Evanescence on it, and I think that was kind of a hit on the radio, so they re-released it with that and stuff. But there's some great songs on here, Gasoline and Broken and everything. So yeah, I still think this is a great album as far as, I don't know, I think Seether I think is still kind of an underrated band from that era, but what you gonna do. And then I get 2 down here. I keep going from like alt rock to Lilith Fair artists, but Fiona Apple, this was her debut album, Title. Maybe still my favorite album of hers. Yeah, probably. I listened to most of these songs, like Sleep to Dream and Shadow Boxer, and obviously Criminal was her big hit that she had the iconic music video for. Yeah, anytime somebody in the modern era is like talking praise about pop girlies or like Taylor Swift or whatever, like, oh, she's such a great songwriter or whatever, I'm like, well, I mean, none of them can hold a candle to Fiona Apple. And to a certain extent, I think Taylor Swift is kind of pretentious and thinks and kind of fancies herself like the new Fiona Apple, and she's never going to be that good. Also, as a film guy, Fiona Apple in the late 90s was also dating the director Paul Thomas Anderson, who I'm obviously a huge fan of, and is one of our greatest living directors right now. Recently won Best Director for One Battle After Another. So I think, I kind of like when there's 2 talented people who I'm a fan of both and they're in a power couple. I still like when that happens. So I think that also contributed to why of like, because I wasn't into like Sarah McLachlan or some of the other little fair artists, or even like I really like Jewel, but I don't own any of Jewel CDs, but I ended up going like full force on Fiona Apple fandom at the time. And then her second album, When the Pawn, kind of in a similar situation to Lisa Loeb, where she had 2 albums, and then it took a very long time for the third. But in Fiona Apple's case, it was more that she like recorded her third album, which will come up sometime later when I have it. And then she like re-recorded it because she didn't like it. And then the first version leaked online back in like the Napster LimeWire era. It was all crazy. There's still some good stuff. Paper Bag is a great song. Get Gone, yeah, Fast as You Can. It's, I think it's maybe slightly not as good as Title, but When the Pawn is still a really solid record from her. So, yeah. And then we have another Seether album. Which one is this? This is Karma and Effect. What's on here? I have a couple different Seether albums. I think I own at least 3. I don't think I listened to this one all that much. Certainly not as much as Disclaimer 2 or the other one I own, which I'm not sure if it's here or in the case in my other room. But yeah, Karma and Effect. I own this one, but I don't remember a lot of these songs. I think I remember. Actually, I don't. Oh, Remedy. I do like Remedy quite a bit. Yeah. Okay, so I do remember that one. And then, because I'm a movie guy, I am going to own way more soundtracks than most people would own. But this is the Magnolia soundtrack, speaking of Paul Thomas Anderson. Magnolia, the film, was very much inspired by the music of Amy Mann. So Amy Mann has like 4 different songs on here, I think. The cover of One is Lonely's Number, Momentum, which Momentum was in a different movie before, even though it's heavily featured in this one. So it wasn't able to be used for Best Original Song Submission. I think they ended up doing Save Me for that one. It didn't win, but that was the closing credit song. But then there's the scene in the movie where all of the characters are singing Wise Up, so that's on here too. Also, there's 2 songs by Supertramp on here, Logical Song and Goodbye Stranger. And so that's how I discovered Supertramp, because I never knew who they were before Magnolia. And the Logical song, recently, because of the part that's like they'll be calling you a radical liberal and stuff, it's been trending on TikTok. So it's been very weird to hear the song that is older than me, that I didn't discover until 1999, 2000, when I got this CD. And then suddenly in 2025, 2026, it's coming back as like a warning about fascism under Trump. But oh yeah, and there's that Dreams Can't Come True song in here. This is a really great soundtrack. And then, because I was super depressed as a kid and a teenager and in my early 20s, I'm a huge fan of Nirvana. So this is Nirvana's first album, Bleach, their breakthrough I'll have next. Bleach, I really like the sort of raw sound of. Like, Nirvana did get better, but they never quite had this particular sound again. Like, I know that they're lumped in with the grunge genre, but this is the most grungy sounding of the stuff that they have. So I don't know if I listened to this album more than Nevermind or In Utero when I had it, but I still think this is kind of underrated. It's kind of the Nirvana album that people don't listen to as much. Maybe About a Girl, because I think that one's the most polished of the songs. And that's a cover, I believe, too. Then obviously Nevermind, the album that sort of kick-started the 90s as a cultural movement as opposed to a chronological movement. I don't know. There's anything that can be said about Nevermind has already been said, but it's pretty much a no-skips great album. Maybe Territorial Pissings can be a skip sometimes. That's not the best song, but 11 out of 12 are that too. And it still remains relevant. I mean, Something in the Way was in the Batman a couple of years ago, so I think Lounge Act is my dark horse for my favorite song in here, though. And then after that, they had Incesticide, which is not really a full studio album. It's a collection of B-sides and outtakes. So there's some songs that aren't on some of their other stuff, and then there's other takes of some of their songs. So like they have a different version of Polly and Downer and stuff, Aneurysm. I don't know. I've always had a soft spot for Incesticide because it's not as looked upon when people are doing retrospectives of their stuff. And then I have Nirvana Unplugged, which had a lot of covers on it. I mean, they do About a Girl and Come As You Are, but probably the cover of David Bowie's Man Who Sold the World is maybe the one that you listen to there. I want to say Plateau is probably the song I listen to mostly, just because I like the illustrated book about birds, the way he sings that. Also, I distinctly remember that after Cobain died, MTV has spent like 24 hours just showing like tributes to Kurt Cobain, which means they played the Unplugged special over and over again. So I distinctly remember coming home from school, or maybe it wasn't the exact day, but I do remember there was one afternoon where I came home from school and Unplugged was on like back to back, and I watched it maybe like more than once or whatever. I must have been he was like 10 when he died, or I was 10 when he died, because I was in like 5th grade. So yeah. And then shifting it up a bit, we got Tenacious D's debut album. Tenacious D, they comedy musical troupe. Jack Black is one of them. They kind of started on, they had an MTV show that I have on DVD. I have a couple other albums from Tenacious D, but they never got as good as this original album. Obviously, they may have broken up or not, because Kyle Gass made a joke following the first Trump assassination attempt, and Jack Black decided to be a dick and throw him under the bus so that he wouldn't put his Minecraft and Super Mario Brothers paychecks in jeopardy. So kind of fuck Jack Black for that. But there's still some great stuff on here. There's no like song listing on the back over here. The song listing is on the inside, but I don't know. I mean, you can't really beat Kielbasa or Fuck Her Gently, Even though Tribute and Wonder Boy, I think, were the two singles off of this. And then Avril Lavigne's first album, Let Go. I don't know. I never liked Skater Boy. I still don't like Skater Boy. But I did like Complicated, and I really liked the first song in here, which was Losing Grip. Yeah, I don't know. I got really into Avril Lavigne for a little bit. Not as much as I had an internet friend who actually lives in the state I live in, so I ended up meeting her in real life when I first moved down here, but she was huge on Avril Lavigne. I wasn't that huge. I think I only owned like her first 2 albums, and then I stopped after that, or maybe 3. Because I only really liked her first 2 albums, and then after the third one, I didn't really like anything else she was putting out. The first album's still pretty good. I might like the second album better, which is coming up next. That was Under My Skin. Yeah, I think I may have actually listened to this one. Has So Much for My Happy Ending. I think I actually listened to this album more than the first one. So in a lot of these cases, when I have like a first and second album from an artist, I like the first one more than the second. But in this case, I think I like the second more than the first. What's next? Stained. This was their first album, Dysfunction. I didn't buy the CD until I already had Break the Cycle, which was the first one I got, because Mud Shovel was big from this album, but otherwise all of their bigger hits were on Break the Cycle, which I'll talk about next. But Aaron Lewis, the lead singer of Stained, is now a right-wing conservative country singer. So another, problematic person who started in new metal hard rock of this time. A lot of Stained's music was just kind of depressing. And since Break the Cycle came out around the summer of 2001, which was the single most depressing time period of all of my life, it kind of became the soundtrack to my depression. So I got Break the Cycle. I think this was actually a high school graduation present from somebody. I have a hard time listening to any song on this anymore, just because it takes me back specifically to the worst part of my life. Thankfully, they don't really play Stained much anymore, even on like the channels I listen to on the radio or whatever. It's been a few years after this was used in the marketing campaign for The Butterfly Effect, which is a movie I really liked when it first came out. Hasn't aged as well because Ashton Kutcher and some other stuff with it, but I still think the movie is better than people give it credit for. If they had cast anyone except Ashton Kutcher in the lead role, I think it would be would have been better for the film's legacy as a whole, but otherwise, but this was, this was the soundtrack to my depression. And then another soundtrack, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The movie came out in July of 1999, and I actually bought this CD. It came out, I think, 2 or 3 days before the movie actually came out, so I heard the songs before I ended up seeing the movie on opening night. So I knew the movie was a musical before my friends did, even though some of my friends saw the movie a couple hours before I did. Still some great songs on here. I think Oh Canada got an Oscar nomination for Best Original Song. Robin Williams kind of did a mediocre performance of it at the Oscars, but yeah. Another soundtrack, Beavis and Butthead Do America. I actually owned this soundtrack. I believe I owned it on cassette before I owned it on CD, or maybe I'm misremembering. I might be thinking of the Beavis and Butthead Experience, the TV show soundtrack. I think I actually got this, but so this CD is from 1996 because the movie came out on December 20th, 1996. Same opening day as Scream. I saw this opening night. I didn't see Scream for another couple weeks after. There's some good stuff in here, though. There's Ozzy, White Zombie, Isaac Hayes, Engelbert Humperdinck's cover of Lesbian Seagull, which I recently introduced my partner to, and she thought it was hilarious that the song existed. So, Butthole Surfers, No Doubt. There's some good stuff on here. It was a good CD. It has some rap on there, so I'm not too crazy about that. But there's Red Hot Chili Peppers cover of Love Roller Coaster. Yeah. Good stuff on here. Still a good soundtrack. Another soundtrack. Here we go. Queen of the Damned. Probably the most new metal. It's a terrible adaptation of the Anne Rice novel, but it's very campy and cheesy if you watch it today. But what's funny is, so Lestat's a rock singer in the movie, and Jonathan Davis of Korn does the singing voice for Lestat, but because of some issue where they didn't have the rights to use Jonathan Davis's voice on the soundtrack, they have other new metal artists as the singers on those songs. So they have the guy from Static X, David Draymond from Disturbed, Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, Marilyn Manson, lead singer of Orgy. And then after this point, you have Change in the House of Flies by Deftones. You have other songs by Disturbed, Static X, Kidney Thieves. Kidney Thieves are also on the Bride of Chucky soundtrack, which I own. Papa Roach. So this was a very, every horror-adjacent movie seemed to have a new metal soundtrack around that time. Come Poop With Me, Triumph the Insult Comic Dog, because I was a gigantic Conan O'Brien fan, still am. And so the fact that Triumph had a musical comedy CD was very funny. There's also a DVD of the live performances on here, too. But this was funny, yeah. I've really been a fan of Triumph the Insult Comic Dog. Then the soundtrack to the 1997 adaptation of Great Expectations, which I used to say this was my second favorite movie of all time. I've bumped it down on my ranking now. I think just as a lovesick teenager who I just had a huge connection with this, plus my general Ethan Hawke fandom. But there are some great songs. There's like Tori Amos' Siren, Sun Shower from Chris Cornell, Like a Friend by Pulp. Verve Pipe. Yeah, this it's a very Poe. It's a very Duncan Sheik, very late 90s, I don't know, alternative type of thing. Life in Mono, which was the song used in the advertisements. Yeah, I mean, it's still one of my favorite movies. It's still a personal favorite. My favorite Alfonso Cuarón movie, which, hot take there. But yeah, listen to this quite a bit too. Oh, okay. As far as underrated music that no one has heard of but me, or at least it feels that way sometimes, Pete. So there was a show on HBO in the 90s and 2000s. I think it was called Reverb. And there was an episode that featured 3 bands, and it showed some of their performances. I believe one of them was Stained, who I had already known about. One of them was Edema, who had a one hit with the song Giving In, which I think will be on this here too. And then there's this band called Pete. And this band called Pete, I thought was the best of the 3. So I got their album. This is a great no skips album. I love this album. This was like one of the most underrated bands in albums of like the period where I was into this type of music. Unfortunately, it's hard to find out anything about them because Pete is a horrible band name in the age of Google. They eventually did release a second album many years later where they changed their band name to Sonicult. But for a while, they just released those songs, and those songs were only available for like digital download, and they didn't get like a physical CD release for years later. And the physical CD release was missing 3 songs. There were 3 songs that still stayed digital exclusives. I still ended up buying the CD anyway because I like them so much. That CD is also great. We'll cover that later. But this is an excellent, excellent album. I think it's on Spotify and YouTube and stuff. So even though the CD itself is pretty hard to track down because I don't think they made that many of them, even though they're from Warner Brothers Records, and obviously it's not really in print and they're not popular enough to get like a vinyl re-release or anything. This is absolutely one of my all-time favorite albums. Love this album. So if you come away from this video looking for like underrated music recommendations, I'm not a music guy, so I'm not going to have a lot of deep cuts for you, but Pete's going to be one of the deep cuts I have for you. Another soundtrack, The Punisher. This is the Thomas Jane Punisher. This had a lot of good stuff on here. That Drowning Pool. I was never big on Puddle of Mud. This does have a decent Nickelback song. It has Broken from Seether. I think I heard about Smile Empty Soul on here. There's 2 Seether songs in here. You have Finger 11, Hate Breed. It's got that kind of stuff on it. But yeah, for whatever flaws this movie version has, I still like the aesthetics of Thomas Jane as the Punisher. And I still like the movie itself. The fake fire hydrant thing was maybe a little too much, and setting it in Florida versus New York City didn't work. But otherwise, there's some good stuff in here. But the soundtrack was just, it's got Trapped, Chevelle, it's got all that kind of like early 2000s hard rock on it. Korn, greatest hits. Yeah, I don't own any of Korn's studio albums. I was just like, I just like the hits. So I'll just get the greatest hits album, and it has, it has all the famous Korn songs that you're aware of. So it also has a live DVD attached to it at CBGB's. I used to own a Blu-ray of a concert too. I think I ended up donating that. Because there was a very brief period where I'm like, oh, why don't I get concert Blu-rays or whatever, and I got like them and Heart and some other ones, and decided I wasn't going to watch them all that much. But yeah, Korn. And the South Park guys, I got the soundtrack to Orgasmo. The soundtrack to Orgasmo. All right, so nowadays, I don't think anybody would ever do this because there's no reason to with music streaming, and it's so easy to download music and whatever. But it was not uncommon for me back in the day to get a CD or something solely for one song. And so I got this mostly for the theme song to Orgasmo, which is Now You're a Man by Trey Parker and Matt Stone's band DVDA. The meaning of DVDA is explained in this movie. I'm not going to say what it is. Orgasmo was probably my favorite live-action movie the South Park guys have made, a little bit better than Cannibal the Musical and Basketball. The music on here on the CD is not very good. I really only like the two songs. I really like Now You're a Man and then A Sign from God, which Robert Smith does the vocals for. I also want to say that Robert Smith may have been canceled for something too. I don't know. There is Rump Shaker by Rex and FX on here though, so all I want to do is zoom, and a boom, boom. And then the Basketball soundtrack, which had a lot of why did I get this? There's a cover of Take on Me by Real Big Fish. There's a Cherry Pop and Daddy's cover of Jumpin' the Line from, Beetlejuice. I think I mostly got this for Real Big Fish's song Beer, which is featured prominently in the movie. There's also Smash Mouth's cover of Why Can't We Be Friends? So it has that kind of music. It's like the Swing and Nerf Herders on here. They did the Buffy the Vampire Slayer theme song, Soul Asylum's on here, yeah. Again, I think this was one of those CDs I got just because I like the movie and for one song. Phil Collins, No Jacket Required. Not gonna lie, I got this CD because of American Psycho. It has some good songs on here, though. I mean, it's got Sussudio, it's got Don't Lose My Number, it's got Take Me Home. It's, yeah, got some good stuff on there. Another South Park album, Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics. I don't know why people buy Christmas albums, especially because you're not going to listen to it any time other than Christmas time. I generally just hate Christmas music anyway. I think Christmas music is quite possibly the worst genre of music ever, worse than country and rap and everything. But, yeah, it's also a humor album. I really like the song Dead, 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 which is very depressing. And it's credited to Juan Schwartz, which is the pseudonym that Trey Parker used for Cannibal the Musical. But yeah, there's a lot of funny stuff on here, so so I own it. Then the soundtrack to Almost Famous, which was my favorite movie of 2000 when it came out. I don't know if I would reassess that at any point. I have a 4K of the director's cut. I should watch that at some point. It's in my pile of unwatched movies. But yeah, this had, Tiny Dancer. This had The Wind from Cat Stevens. Fever Dog by Stillwater, the fictional band in the movie. Yeah, a lot of classic rock tracks that are included in the movie. Simple Man by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Good classic rock stuff. Mostly got it because I like the movie. Speaking of edema, yep, Giving In was their one hit from this, and it's also the best song on the album. But there's some other stuff I like. There's a song called Speculum I liked, The Way You Like It. I think they may have tried to release that as a second single. The song Trust, which ends the album, is pretty good. Yeah, I feel like the lead singer of this is related to the singer of a different band. I can't remember if that's true or not. But yeah, I don't think this band really went anywhere, but Giving In was a big thing at the time. Scream 3, the album, with a holographic cover. I fucking hate the movie Scream 3. I consider it not canon because it's a fucking awful movie. Even after the release of Scream 7, I still think it's the worst Scream movie. But it had A lot of new metal stuff. I mean, Creed is on here, so fuck Creed. But it also had Slipknot's Wait and Bleed, had Finger 11, System of a Down, Seven Dust, Godsmack, Cold Chamber, Static X, Incubus I never liked, Dope, Fuel, Power Man 5000, Orgy, Stained. So a lot of other bands I liked, just, fuck Creed and fuck Incubus, but otherwise. So, terrible movie, but great soundtrack. Well, good soundtrack. I'm not going to go ahead and say it's great, but... And then the soundtrack to Escape from LA, which, hot take, I actually like LA more than New York. None of these songs are really well known, I guess, but the Rob Zombie, or the White Zombie, closing credits song, the one I liked, 10 Seconds Down, I remember that. I don't remember which of these songs it is, but there's the one that's like, seems like I've been here before, seems so familiar, seems like I'm slipping into a dream within a dream. That's my favorite song in here. But you got Tori Amos, you got Ministry, Gravity Kills, Stabbing Westward, Tool, Deftones. Some good stuff on here for, soundtrack to a movie that came out in 1996. So I have that. Natalie Imbruglia. Yep, this is the album that has Torn on it. It's the opening track. Torn is a cover, by the way. A lot of people still don't know that. I do like this whole album, though. I mean, Torn is obviously the best song on there, but I liked Big Mistake and Leave Me Alone. There's some good stuff on here. Yeah. Her second album might actually be better as far as song for song, even though Torn's on here. Is her second album next? Yes, it is. White Lily's Island, Natalie Imbruglia. Yeah, this one has Dat Day, this has Satellites, Wrong Impression. Yeah, I think I actually like this album as an album more than her first album, even though I like Torn more than any of the other songs. But yeah, as far as like all those, like that Lilith Fair, the female singer eras, I always like Natalie Imbruglia. She did act in one of those Johnny English movies, too. I did see that in the theater. I don't know what she's up to lately. Fuel, Something Like Human, because in the 90s you could not escape the song Hemorrhage in My Hands. There's some other good stuff on here, too, but Hemorrhage is the best song on here. Yeah, I think Last Time is the opening album on there. Slow is on here. Yeah, there's some good stuff on here, but it's kind of to one banger, and then everything else is kind of weaker beyond that. And then, yeah, the Matrix soundtrack, because, yeah. So, yeah, Rock is Dead from Marilyn Manson. You got Ministry. I do like the band name Meat Beat Manifesto. I don't know if anything happened to them. Prodigy. The remix, like the techno remix of Dracula is on here, which I don't own the album. Rob Zombie did have a remix album that was called American Made Music to Strip By, and it was mostly Hellbilly Deluxe songs that were remixed to be like dance tracks. Oh yeah, Rammstein Du Hast. I guess they've also been kind of canceled a little bit, but I still do like their music. And Rage Against the Machine, Wake Up, of course, the closing credits song. Even the more recent Matrix movie had a brass female vocaled cover of Wake Up. But yeah, this was kind of a popular CD to own around this time. And then I got the Devil's Rejects soundtrack. Unlike the House of a Thousand Corpses soundtrack, which we'll get to later, this one doesn't have any Rob Zombie songs on it. This is mostly like 70s Southern rock on it. Midnight Rider by the Allman Brothers. You got Three Dog Night. You got those kind of bands. Rocky Mountain Way, Joe Walsh. Freebird, Lynyrd Skynyrd, obviously, because that's a very important song in the movie itself. Yeah, and there's a fictional band in the movie called Banjo and Sullivan, so they have a couple songs in here too. I think they're also on the soundtrack for Haunted World of El Superbeasto, but I don't own that soundtrack. And then there's a DVD on here as well, which I think has some like behind the scenes stuff. It's like it's not the full making of documentary for the movie, but it has like clips of those. But yeah, so I have that. And then the American Psycho soundtrack, which So there are two versions of the soundtrack released. I have the second printing because the first printing did have "Hip to Be Square" on there, but then there was some complaints about Huey Lewis, and he had second thoughts about the song being in the movie, and so he was like, well, like, they already signed off the rights for the movie, so I just don't want it on the soundtrack. So they reprinted the soundtrack without that song. It also doesn't have Sussudio. Most of the major songs you remember from that movie are not on the soundtrack, but it does have "Something in the Air" from David Bowie, which is the closing credit song for American Psycho. It's got the dope cover of "You Spin Me Around." It's got New Order's "True Faith," which is a great song, and that plays during a big club scene early on. It's got "Pump Up the Volume," which is in the movie. It's got "What's on Your Mind" from the Information Society. There's some good stuff on here. I mean, it would be better if it had like more of the music from the movie itself, but I understand, licensing Sussudio to be on here. That's why I bought the Phil Collins CD, but it's still got enough good shit on here that I wasn't mad about getting that. So that's all the CDs on the tower. So next we'll move to the much larger collection, which is in a tub. And whether I film that in my office or I film it here will just depend on how heavy that is. The case was too heavy to bring out here, so I'm just taking stacks from that room to bring them out here and talk about them. So anyway, now going into what I had in the case in my other room. The best of album for the Gin Blossoms. Most of these songs are from New Miserable Experience, which is their big album, but there's a couple songs from some other stuff there. I am a gigantic Gin Blossoms fan. I have seen them twice in concert. Both times I splurged for the VIP package, which still wasn't that expensive because, they're the Gin Blossoms. Either Hey Jealousy or Found Out About You. I go back and forth, but one of those two is my favorite song of all time. But I may change my answer depending on what day it is. But I am a gigantic Gin Blossoms fan. I don't know what else to say about that. They are one of my all-time favorite bands, top 2, top 3. So that's why I have that. Another greatest hits album, Offspring. Just I think it's because in the early 2000s, this girl I was dating bought a used copy of Crazy Taxi for either PlayStation or PlayStation 2, and it only had 5 songs on the game that you would play, and one of them was All I Want by The Offspring, and I had to hear it so often that it was just I think I just kind of want a CD that has all of The Offspring's good songs. All I Want is track number 5 on here, but this has all the Offspring songs that you've heard of, so... Meteora, which is Linkin Park's second album, not as good as their first album, which will come up somewhere in here. Yeah, I think I own... I forget if I think I may have bought 3 of their albums, but obviously their first album, which will come up somewhere in here, was great. It was a huge hit in my last couple of years of high school, junior, senior year. That had a lot of great songs on it. Meteora is not as good. Yeah, it's got Numb on here. It's got Somewhere I Belong. It's got a couple Faint. It's got a couple of their well-known songs on here, but I still don't think it's as good as their first album. So, but I have it. Man, talk about canceled. He's going to come up a few times here because I was a kind of a bigger fan of his before all that shit was found out about him. But Marilyn Manson, Born Villain, not one of his better albums. Yeah, I'm not even sure I could sing one of these songs just out of memory or anything, but I got it when it was released, so there you are. OTEP Ascension. I have a couple OTEP albums. I got into OTEP because I was a big fan of True Blood the first couple of years that was on, and an episode in maybe season 2 had their song Head, which is from a different one of their albums, and I really like that. And when it comes to true metal, not hard rock that sometimes is, or new metal, but metal bands, I tend to like the ones that aren't just screaming and actually do some singing, which is why I tend to lean toward metal bands that have female singers, because they tend to actually sing and not just scream. Or if they scream, it's less abrasive, you can still tell what the lyrics are. So when I heard OTEP, and then a lot of OTEP's lyrics are just extremely left-wing, so I enjoyed that part of it too. So this isn't one of my favorite. My favorite will come up later. It's Smash the Control Machine, but I own maybe 3 albums of theirs. But they're still one of the better metal bands that I listen to. So Black Sabbath Reunion. This was a live concert recording of most of their greatest hits, and it was back when Ozzy rejoined the guys at Black Sabbath and they went on a reunion tour. I got into Black Sabbath because I was a huge fan of Ozzy as a teenager. I don't remember how I got into Ozzy, probably through Beavis and Butthead. And my father briefly came into my life when I was a teenager and asked what bands I like, and when I told him Ozzy, he was like, oh, well, did you ever like Black Sabbath? Because my father was born in the late 60s, and so he mostly grew up in the 70s, so classic rock was kind of the music that was most about his life before he died. And so he bought me, it'll come up later, Black Sabbath Greatest Hits, and so I got into Black Sabbath from there as well. So when they did the reunion tour and they had they did all their big songs and stuff, and it sounded good, so I got this. I guess one of the regrets of my life is that I never saw Ozzy or Black Sabbath perform live. I had opportunities to, I just didn't for whatever reason. So especially when Ozfest was a thing, because that was going around when I was in high school and early years of college, and I just never got around to going to Ozfest. But can I show this? Yeah, probably fine. This was Tenacious D's 3rd album, Rise of the Phoenix. It's not very good. I think I've only listened to it once or twice. I guess I could give it another shot, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this album. A Perfect Circle, Mer de Noms. So Perfect Circle, band that's a little bit more sad from the lead singer of Tool. Obviously, Judith is on here and 3 Libras, so they're 2 of their biggest. And Thinking of You. Good song. So I probably like A Perfect Circle more than I like Tool, which might be a crazy opinion to have. But this was their first album, and I got into them later in high school, probably junior, senior year, and I was still a big fan of them. Another best of album, Sting and the Police, because I love 80s music. So, and this had all their hits on it, Message in a Bottle, and, Don't Stand So Close to Me, and, Fields of Gold, all the good stuff. So, all the big, the Police hits are on there, so. This is Sheryl Crow's self-titled album, which I think may have been her 2nd or 3rd album. I did have her first album on cassette when I was a kid, Tuesday Night Music Club, which had, All I Want to Do Is Have Some Fun and stuff. This one has My Favorite Mistake and a couple other hits on it. But Sheryl Crow, again, was one of that crop of the Lilith Fair female singers from the mid-90s that I liked. So I always liked Sheryl Crow. So I have that album. Speaking of Ozzy, the first album I ever got that was of Ozzy was his Greatest Hits album, which was The Ozman Cometh. There was a new song on here called Back on Earth, and otherwise it had most of his big hits. It didn't have Perry Mason on it, which that was a complaint that Ozzy fans had at the time, that was one of his better songs and it wasn't on here. But most of his big songs, his big singles, Shot in the Dark and all that stuff, are on here. Also, what was fun is on the bonus disc, it was a CD-ROM, and this was kind of early into CDs when they did this, and it had some games on it and QuickTime videos and stuff too. So that was a pretty cool bonus back in the early days of doing stuff like that. I currently own a computer that doesn't have a CD-ROM drive, which, that sucks, but whatever. This is a Tool album. This is kind of cool because it has the little Viewmaster so that you can look at the different artwork and stuff. This is... Which album is this? Is this Lateralis? I always forget which one this is. It's one of their albums. This has The Pot on it and somebody else. 10,000 Days. Yeah, this has Vicarious on it. This has The Pot on it. So Rosetta Stone. So other Tool fans will be beating me over the head to be like, how do you not know the name of all their albums? But it's this one. So again, even though I'm a bigger fan of A Perfect Circle, I still really much like Tool and the industrial sound. It took me a little bit to get to the industrial sound. The Fight Club soundtrack. I also own this on vinyl because the CD soundtrack does not have the song "This Is Your Life," which has Brad Pitt singing some quotes from the movie. But otherwise, this has the score from the film. It also doesn't have like "Where Is My Mind" or any of the other like needle drops. Not that there's too many needle drops in there. It's mostly the Dust Brothers score. But I have it on I have it on CD, and I also have it on vinyl. So I have that. Another Marilyn Manson. This is Hollywood. This is probably the Marilyn Manson album I listen to most because of the fight song. Yeah, and for a while, I used to have a car where I put a bunch of like communist and atheist bumper stickers on because it was the early 2000s and into the 2010s. And he has the line in that song, "I'm not a slave to a God that doesn't exist." I had that as a bumper sticker on the back of my car. It got ripped off twice. So it got ripped off once, and then I replaced it, and then much later on down the road, it got ripped off or peeled off a second time. And at that point, it was time to like sell that car, and I decided not to have controversial bumper stickers on my car so no one would try to vandalize it. But I still like a lot of the songs, but I find it hard to listen to him knowing all the shit he did now, so. Three Doors Down. These guys are MAGA, but I liked their music before I knew that. Kryptonite, Loser, yeah, Be Like That. There's some really good songs that they did. I always liked Three Doors Down. It just sucks that they're right-wing pieces of shit, so. Another Tenacious D. This is the soundtrack to their movie, The Pick of Destiny. The movie bombed, but it was also kind of a musical, so. But this was fun. This was like a collector's edition. I don't know if it was like an Amazon exclusive or something, but it's got a little holographic cover. It's got the songs from the movie. It's got some fake tarot cards for Tenacious D. And then it also has a actual Pick of Destiny from the movie, which would be impressive if anyone had actually seen the damn movie. I went to see it on Thanksgiving. It was a 2-movie day because I usually, if I can help it, I go to the movies on Thanksgiving every year. There's been a few years that I've missed for various reasons, but that year I saw Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain, followed by Tenacious D's Pick of Destiny, and that was a 2-movie day. And I really do still like The Pick of Destiny. It's a funny movie, and it's got good music. So, this is following other humorous albums. This is Incredibad by The Lonely Island. All of their major early hits from Saturday Night Live are on here. So the Michael Bolton one, the Jizz in My Pants song, I'm on a Boat, Lazy Sunday, Dick in a Box, all that stuff, Natalie's Rap. All of their major early viral stuff from SNL is on this album. So, and one of these guys went to make MacGruber and Over Your Dead Body recently, and the other one made the Naked Gun reboot and everything. Also, as far as new metal-ish kind of soundtracks, the soundtrack to Daredevil, the Ben Affleck movie. The R-rated cut is better than the PG-13 cut, but it's still not the best movie. But yeah, this had Fuel, this had Saliva, Seether, Nickelback, Drowning Pool featuring Rob Zombie, Moby, who is my celebrity doppelganger, whether I want it to be that way or not. Obviously, Evanescence had their 2 big hits on this one, My Immortal and Bring Me to Life. Chevelle, Hoobastank, yeah, this is a Finger 11. This is a very early 2000s time capsule right here. So, the King of the Hill soundtrack. I did not buy this myself. This was a Christmas present, I believe, from my father, because he liked King of the Hill. I liked it obviously because I was a big fan of Beavis and Butthead, and this was Mike Judge's follow-up animated show, and it's still a great show. They did a reboot recently for Hulu that was really good. Unfortunately, the soundtrack is mostly country music, so I'm not very good on it. There is a song that's like the actual voice actors from the show called Mow Against the Grain, which is a parody of that Everyone's Free to Wear Sunscreen song, if anyone remembers that piece of shit song. I think Baz Luhrmann had something to do with that. I've always hated Baz Luhrmann's work. But yeah, there's Bare Naked Ladies and Sheryl Crow in here, but otherwise it's people like Travis Tritt, Brooks and Dunn, Faith Hill, Trace Adkins, it's Deanna Carter. It's a lot of people I don't particularly care for. So, not the best CD, but it was a gift. The Jerky Boys Volume 2. Okay, so... I don't know how many people remember the Jerky Boys, but they were these two guys, and they basically crank called people for fun. This was before crank yankers, before any of that stuff. And they played characters, and they made CDs of their phone calls. I guess they're mostly operating in New York. I guess that was a one-party state for recording phone calls. And most of it was very like swear heavy and dirty humor and stuff, which this is 1994 is when, so I was probably like an early teen or a tween or something, so I obviously found it hilarious. I mean, back then I liked the Jerky Boys movie. I owned it on VHS and everything. And, my cousin and I would watch it a lot. So I have a few Jerky Boys CDs. It's mainly, this is the best one. I think I own the first and the third one if they come up, and those aren't as good. The first one, they were still figuring out the characters. The third one wasn't as good. The team ended up breaking up, but I know one of them, the white guy, Johnny Brennan, he does a voice on Family Guy, which is pretty much just an exact copy of one of his characters that he does for the Jerky Boys. Scream, soundtrack to the first Scream. This has got some good stuff. Red Right Hand, Youth of America, that acoustic Don't Fear the Reaper cover. Moby's on here too. Yeah, so, and Whisper to a Scream from the closing credits. Yeah, it's good stuff. Weird Al Greatest Hits, Volume 1. I've seen Weird Al in concert. He was actually the last concert I saw before COVID. So he was the last concert I saw for quite a long time until, I don't know, when was the next concert I saw after that? It was Gin Blossoms. I think it was 2022. Yeah, I think it was 2022. So this was the last concert I saw for years. I think it was whenever Amish Paradise came out, there was a big push on like MTV and Comedy Central where there were Weird Al specials and they showed all of his old music videos and everything. So I got really into Weird Al because, you know, that was about the right age to get into Weird Al. I was probably like, 12 or something, 11 or 12. So yeah. But I eventually did. I saw him in concert in 2019. He's a funny guy. The soundtrack to Desperado. Desperado was a film I loved as a teenager. Well, I guess I saw it a little bit earlier than that, but it was still a film I loved. So I mostly got it because of that. And also, Robert Rodriguez is big friends with Quentin Tarantino, and something Quentin Tarantino has done on the soundtrack of all of his movies is that between songs he'd have like little clips of dialogue from his movies. So this soundtrack does it too, because Quentin Tarantino is an actor in Desperado, but also they made Grindhouse together. They both did shorts in that Four Rooms movie, anthology movie together. So it's kind of like that. I just really like the songs by Tito and Tarantula. Yeah, Strange Face of Love, and the opening credits song that's sung with Los Lobos and Antonio Banderas, even though it's all in Spanish and they can't speak Spanish. Good stuff. The Simpsons, Songs in the Key of Springfield. These are songs from the actual show, not like that other one where it had like Do the Bartman and Deep Deep Trouble and stuff, that original songs. These are actually songs from the show, like the Stonecutters song We Do, or the Monorail song. From the first, what was this? It's copyright 1990 through 1997. So, songs from, the cream of the crop, like the heyday of The Simpsons before people argue about when it went downhill or whatever. And then also following in the whatever, for cartoon soundtracks, Chef Aid, the South Park album. This was the soundtrack to the TV show. They had a special episode that was Chef Aid, and so the songs are mostly from them. So yeah, there was Ozzy Osbourne's Nowhere to Run. There's a couple songs from Isaac Hayes as Chef. What else was there? Oh, there's a song with Puffy on here. That's aged poorly. What was it? I think Ween is on here. There's that Horny 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 song, but they talk through it. They do like a comedy sketch in the middle of it. Yeah, Primus, obviously, because they do the theme song. So yeah, there's some decent stuff on here. It's not a great album or anything, but... Riot by Paramore. What's on this? Misery Business is on here. Yeah, and Crush Crush Crush. So I'm not a huge Paramore fan. I think I have maybe 2 of their albums, but Around that time when Misery Business was blowing up, I got this. So, and then I'll talk about this a little bit more when I get to the Evans Blue CDs. But this is a signed CD from a band called Parabel. Parabel. Long story short, I'll get into this, but there's a band called Evans Blue. I was a big fan of Evans Blue. I was mainly a fan of them because of the lyrics of their songs. The lyrics are written by the lead singer, a guy named Kevin Madison. Great singer-songwriter. I follow him on Letterboxd, and he has terrible taste in movies, but great singer-songwriter. But after the second album they released, the band kicked him out, and then after that they sucked because they just sounded like a generic nu metal band with shitty lyrics. But Kevin Madison went on and he did this, formed this other band called Parabel, which they independently released their CDs. Sometimes they would just sign them or they'd give away like guitar picks or whatever. So I bought a couple of their albums when they were self-releasing. I don't know if they're still around. I think there's members from a band called Framing Hanley on here too, and I'll get to them when I get to their piles. But there was some good stuff in here. There are also some songs on this particular album that were going to be on in Evans Blue third album that Kevin Madison was writing, and they'd done some recording before he got kicked out. I guess he was angry at his band for kicking out, so he did end up leaking all of the tracks for like the third album for a while until he was afraid of like legal stuff. But I was able to download that and I burned it on a CD somewhere. I'm not going to go over my burned CDs because when it came to downloading songs in like the early 2000s, I didn't start doing it until Napster had already been shut down, so a lot of those were from LimeWire, so they weren't the best quality. Or there was a website no one remembers called Audio Galaxy, where I was sometimes able to get somewhat better versions of songs than I would get from LimeWire, and a whole lot less of malware and stuff that LimeWire had. LimeWire was like the Temu of torrenting songs, or peer-to-peer sharing songs, but yeah. So that's Parabel. But I'll talk more about Evans Blue when I get to those. And let's get to the next piles. The soundtrack to the Tales from the Crypt TV show, which is mostly instrumental. It's mostly from the first season, but there is a rap song sung by the Crypt Keeper, John Kasser, called The Crypt Jam. The reason I own this is because I wanted the Tales from the Crypt Christmas album called Holiday Songs. But this album was really hard to find when I got into Tales from the Crypt. And back then, before Amazon, if you couldn't find like a CD in a store, you could sometimes get a store to special order it for you, like Barnes & Noble or whatever Strawberry Records, wherever I ended up getting this from. And so I tried to order Holiday Songs special order through the store, and they ordered this for me by mistake anyway, so I ended up just buying it. I never ended up finding a CD for Holiday Songs, but somebody somewhere along the line uploaded the whole CD to the Internet Archive, so I have the MP3s somewhere on my computer for Holiday Songs. But that's why I own this. The soundtrack to the first season of Californication, the David Duchovny Showtime show. I didn't really watch. I eventually watched, like, I think the last season as it aired, but I got into Californication a little later because I think I randomly decided to just blind buy the seasons of the show on DVD when they were on sale, and it seemed like something I would want to watch, and I didn't have Showtime at the time. I eventually got Showtime for Dexter, I think. But there was some decent stuff on here, Rolling Stones and Harvey Danger and some Warren Zevon and some random stuff, Elton John. So yeah, not a great album, but I had a brief period where I was a big fan of the show Californication. Another soundtrack, Howard Stern's Private Parts. So I didn't listen to Howard Stern on the radio as a kid because there weren't any local affiliates that carried him. But his radio show was filmed and shown on the E! Network. And so I watched a lot of that, as did my friends. And so that's how we got into Howard Stern. I mean, like, if you're a horny teenage boy in the late 90s and you see there's a show on E! Where this guy is interviewing like a bunch of topless women and asking them about their sex life, that's going to be interesting to you, right? So, and it was around the late 90s that his biopic came out, which was based on his memoir. It's kind of the movie that kind of broke out Paul Giamatti as an actor too, since he plays the antagonist in it. So I eventually saw the movie. I didn't see it in theaters, but I think I rented it on pay-per-view. This was back when you had to call a toll-free number at your cable company to watch a movie, unless you had a black box to decrypt it, which I didn't at the time. Well, let's just say in 1997, I would have been about 14 or 15, and Howard Stern's Private Parts is a movie you're really going to like at the age of 15 before you have access to the internet. So... but the soundtrack had a lot of, it had a song with Rob Zombie and Howard Stern. It had a song with Flea and Dave Navarro, Marilyn Manson, Ozzy Osbourne with Typo Negative, Green Day, The Ramones, Deep Purple, Cheap Trick. So a bit of classic rock, a bit of more modern rock. So it made sense for me to want the soundtrack to that. And so, yeah, that's how that was. I eventually did also read Howard Stern's Private Parts, the book, and his follow-up to that, which was Miss America. But he lost a lot of his fan base when he moved from regular radio to satellite radio, even though he didn't have the censorship anymore. And also, he kind of moved away from like the pervy stuff once he got his second marriage, which is kind of funny that the movie Private Parts is all about his relationship with his wife, but it's his first wife. He ended up divorcing her after, and then he married another woman who he's been with ever since. But he ended up getting more political and less kind of sexual and more about like celebrity interviews and stuff as time went on. But that like 90s Howard Stern was definitely fit into my teenage sensibilities. Weird Al Greatest Hits Volume 2, which I think I actually got this before I got Volume 1. I may be misremembering that there. But this, if his first volume had a lot of his 80s stuff, and then this had a lot of his 90s stuff, so like Smelled Like Nirvana. I never really liked his Jurassic Park, only because the MacArthur Park song is one I don't think I'd heard at the time. It's got the Bedrock Anthem, Headline News. One of his original, my favorite of his original songs, that's not a parody of anything, You Don't Love Me Anymore, is on here, though, and that's really good. It's also got the UHF theme song, though that's 80s, because that was from his movie. But yeah, Volume 1 is the better stuff, though, I think. The soundtrack to the movie The Informers. The Informers was a book of connected short stories written by Bret Easton Ellis, the guy who wrote The Rules of Attraction and American Psycho. And I think this is one of the CDs that I got solely for a song I couldn't find anywhere else, which is, I think it's a song called Only You, and it's sung by one of the actors in the movie and stuff. Could not find it to download for my life, because this came out, this was in the 2010s, right? Well, it was either late 2000s or early 2010s. But it has other good stuff on here. There's a song from Simple Minds, a song from Wang Chung, wrote Shadows of the Night from Pat Benatar, and A Flock of Seagulls stuff. It's all 80s stuff that I love. I mean, most of my music taste that I listen to now, aside from the stuff I own, is just 80s and 90s hits. My music taste is stuck in my childhood. So, there's some good stuff on there. The soundtrack to a movie called Hamlet 2. I don't know how many people have seen this, but this was a comedy about a guy who wants to make a sequel to Hamlet. It was kind of a Sundance hit. It's one of those movies that is a comedy that plays well at the festival, but doesn't really have a lot of mainstream appeal. But I really liked it. I mostly got this for a song called Rock Me Sexy Jesus, which is in it, because the Hamlet 2 is a musical, so it basically has the songs from the musical within the movie. So I got it for that. And it's fine. It's funny. Raw. Why do I own this? There's a song in here called Fallen Angels. Okay, I know I own this. So, I'm an old. So the internet social media sites from when I was in the early 2000s, there was MySpace, which had music you could put a song on your profile. And then there was this other website that almost no one remembers, even though it's still operating, called Fubar. Nowadays, it's mostly just a cesspool of like right-wingers and stuff. But it was basically originally pitched as like the adult version of MySpace, or like MySpace meets like a nightclub. So people could upload NSFW photos, and they could play like games. They could like buy someone a drink, and the drink was just like a little GIF or something. And people could put multiple songs on their profile, not just one. And I think I heard the song Fallen Angels from here on one of those profiles, and so I blind bought the CD. But I do not remember any of the other songs except for Fallen Angels. But I think I liked this album when I bought it. Don't know. I haven't really listened to it much in the ensuing years. Stone Sour. This is an album that I bought only for one song, which is Through Glass. And then when I listened to all of the other songs, I realized that none of the other songs on the album sound like that. So this is an album where I only really like one of the songs on it. That used to happen back in the day, before your Spotifys and all that stuff. Newfound Glory, From the Screen to Your Stereo Part 2. I own this album because Newfound Glory does a cover of Lisa Loeb's Stay that Lisa Loeb is also featured on. This is basically just Newfound Glory doing covers of soundtrack songs. So, like, there's Kiss Me, there's The King of Wishful Thinking from Pretty Woman, Love Fool, Iris from City of Angels. I used to say Iris was one of my favorite songs, or my favorite song, and I've bumped it down to, I don't know, somewhere else in the ranking. Though it recently made a comeback with people doing flashbacks on TikTok. Don't You Forget About Me from Breakfast Club, Crazy for You, which is from a number of different movies, and Head Over Heels, which I think is the cover of the Tears for Fears song, and not the it's that one. Yeah, so covers of songs I all like, and they're all from soundtracks, so that was up my alley. Godsmack 4, their fourth album. Yeah, this had some good stuff, right? Yeah, it had Speak. I guess that's really that. the song Speak. Yeah, it's not their best album. I think they started going downhill with this album. But I remember thinking it was okay, but it wasn't as good as the first three, and certainly not as good as the first two. But yeah, so I have Godsmack's fourth album. Lindsay Lohan's Speak. I bought this CD for 1 whole cent plus shipping on Amazon. She had one single on this. It was called Rumors. Like, I'm tired of rumors starting. And I kind of like that song. And so I'm like, for a cent, I'll buy a CD for a cent. So I think this is the cheapest brand new CD, because it was still a brand new shrink wrapped CD. I think when they price something at a cent, that they're considering it like a dead stock or something. That's just like an unsold thing that they're supposed to like throw away. But now they mailed me a completely new shrink wrapped CD for a cent. So I own Lindsay Lohan's album. Soundtrack to The Frighteners. This is also mostly just the Danny Elfman score, though there is a cover of Don't Fear the Reaper by the Mutton Birds, not the original Blue Oyster Cult, because that plays over the movie's closing credits. I was a huge fan of The Frighteners. It came out the year I turned 13. Still probably my favorite Peter Jackson movie. I mean, you can fight me on that. People would fight me on that from the horror side because of Dead Alive / Brain Dead, and people would fight me on that from the mainstream side with Lord of the Rings. But for me, it's always The Frighteners. In fact, this character, a ghost named Cyrus, my first dog was named after this character. It was a Great Dane. And I was able to convince my mother and her fiance at the time to name the Great Dane Cyrus after Shia McBride's character in The Frighteners. Though they were always embarrassed when I explained the origin of the dog's name to people. So they lied about it. I mostly bought this just because I was excited to see the movie, even though it only had the score on it. It's a good score. I mean, it's Danny Elfman. All of Danny Elfman's scores start to sound the same at some point. But this is the soundtrack to the TV show Angel. I didn't get into Buffy or Angel until both shows were off the air. I was dating a girl in the early 2000s who got me into them. And I believe I got this because there was a song, I think it's called Pretty as a Picture, and I couldn't find it anywhere to download, so I bought the entire CD just for the one song, because that's kind of what you had to do when a song wasn't available to download back then. This is a comedy CD from a guy named Richie Voss, which is signed. There was a TV show called Last Comic Standing, which was a competition of stand-up comedians. And after that show, or after that season concluded, 3 of the comedians from that were performing at a local comedy club in Rhode Island, where I used to live. And that ended up being the first live comedy show I ever went to see. It was Rich Voss, Dave Mordell, and Corey Kahaney were the three comedians. Dave Mordell I liked the most because he had a very dry sense of humor, but I liked Rich Voss too, so I bought his CD and had him sign it, and it's got some funny stuff on it. This is Fiona Apple's third album, Extraordinary Machine. I don't like it as much as our other two, but it did take forever for this to come out. This also has a DVD side with some live recordings and some music videos on it. So it was one of those back then in the early 2000s where they put DVDs or CD-ROMs and stuff too. So it's a flipper disc though. So one side is a CD and then you flip it over and the other side's DVD. At least I have, I have both a PS5 and a 4K Blu-ray player, so I can still watch DVDs if I want to watch that. So. I think Red, Red, Red might have been my favorite song in here, but yeah, I don't like it as much as our other two albums that I have there, or the first two albums, but I have it. The soundtrack to Tank Girl. I have watched this movie semi-recently, because I got the Blu-ray from Umbrella. Vinegar Syndrome eventually released a copy too, but I bought it from Umbrella before the Vinegar Syndrome came out. There's some weird songs on here I like. There's, Portishead's Roads, which is a great song, and Army of Me from Bjork is on here. There's also a song performed by the people in the mutant kangaroo costumes, like Ice-T and stuff. There's a song from Hole on here, a song from Bush. It's kind of that mid-90s kind of rock stuff that was going on at that point that still kind of felt like it. Or Veruca Assault. Yeah, Joan Jett's on here too. But yeah. I still like the music from the movie. The soundtrack to Rob Zombie's Halloween remake. I don't remember why I got this. I think I got this for the revamped Halloween theme that Tyler Bates did. There's some good stuff. The original Don't Fear the Reaper from Blue Oyster Cult's on here. Love Hurts by Nazareth, which is used. Oh Baby, I Love Your Way, the live version, Peter Frampton, that's a good one. Tom Sawyer by Rush. There's some, and Mr. Sandman. So there are some good songs on here. Yeah, so that's why I got it. Let's see. Evanescence, The Open Door. I think this was their second album, maybe? There's some good stuff in here, though. I did like the Loose Control's a really good song. Weight of the World, Call Me When You're Sober. Yeah. I have nothing bad to say about this album. It's a good album. It's a good follow-up. Seven Dust. This was one of those new metal bands that was big in the new metal scene, but never really broke out beyond that into the mainstream. But there's some great stuff in here. Denial, Waffle... Licking Cream is always a song I've liked, even though it's a terrible title for one. And Insecure, yeah, it's good. It's a good album. Sugar Cult. I think this is a band I also discovered from somebody's Fubar profile. There's a song called Los Angeles on here that I liked. The rest of the album's not as good, but I like the song. Sometimes I think of lyrics to that song. Because the whole chorus is like, Heat of Los Angeles. It's kind of good. So, yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of them, but I think that's where I discovered them. The soundtrack to Punisher Warzone. So the Punisher movie that was made after the Thomas Jane one. This was mostly like new metal stuff. So it's got Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie was just on every fucking soundtrack back then, wasn't he? Slayer, Slipknot, Rise Against, Seether, Hatebreed, Static X. I mean, Static X was on a lot of them too. So yeah, all those bands. So every soundtrack for a certain type of movie had those bands on them. I bought this at a thrift store. Garth Brooks' The Life of Chris Gaines. Trying to remember, Garth Brooks for a very long time was like one of the best-selling musical artists like of all time, like rivaling like Michael Jackson and shit. And then he decided to do this weird experiment where he had an alter ego named Chris Gaines, who is basically like a cross between Garth Brooks and Trent Reznor. So it's kind of some of the songs still sound like country, and then some of them just kind of sound like a country musician trying to be emo, which is what it really is. And it was part of this concept where he wanted to make a movie where he starred as Chris Gaines in like a fictional artist biopic, and it's supposed to be about this musician who like is in a car accident and gets injured and tries to make a comeback or something. But he hosted SNL as himself, but then he was the musical guest as Chris Gaines, and there was an E! True Hollywood Story for the fictional Chris Gaines. It was this weird like experiment he tried that people didn't really like. But there was one single off of this song called Lost in You that I legitimately think is a good song. I also think, It Don't Matter to the Sun, I think is a pretty good song too. So even though some of these songs lean a little too country for my taste, because I'm not a country guy in any way, shape, or form, I kind of like this. And also I got this at a thrift store, like a Savers or something, for like maybe $1. So it was like dirt cheap. Also, I don't think you can really find this on streaming. I think you have to like download the album through other means if you can't find a physical copy. So, music for elevators. So Anthony Stewart Head, he played Giles on Buffy, and he also played the Repo Man in Repo the Genetic Opera. And I saw that he had kind of a solo album, and it's kind of weird. I don't know what genre of music to describe this as. It's a little experimental electro something or other. It's not really good. I only really like one song on here, which is called Owning My Mistakes. But it was kind of a blind buy because it was like, well, I like the Buffy musical episode and I like Repo the Genetic Opera. Let's see what else he's got. And it wasn't to my taste. This is 3 Days Grace. I have a couple of their albums. Why did I buy this one? Never Too Late's on here. Okay. Probably for that. Yeah. Pain. The Pain Without Love. Okay, I probably bought it for Pain and then Animal I've Become. Okay, this has like 3 singles on it. So, yeah, that's why I bought it. I liked 3 Days Grace back in the day. This was Perfect Circle's 3rd album, Emotive. I don't like it too much. It's mostly like a covers of anti-war songs. Like they do a cover of John Lennon's Imagine. But there was one song that's like just a regular Perfect Circle song. It's called Passive, and it was on the soundtrack to a movie called Constantine, the one with Keanu Reeves. Not a very good movie, though it has its moments. So I think I mostly bought it because it's like, hey, I like a Perfect Circle, and I heard this song in the movie and I like it, and then the rest of the album is just kind of mamby-pamby 60s protest songs done through like a emo pseudo-industrial lens, and it's not very good, but you know. Finger 11, I'm pretty sure I bought this for the song Paralyzer. Yes, hold on for me and my drink. Yeah, there's some good songs on here, but I think Paralyzer is the reason I bought it, and it's the only one of these songs that I remember. So I also remember, actually, I ordered this album from Amazon, so this must have been late 2000s, early 2010s. Actually, late 2000s, because I remember where I lived. But I bought it, and Amazon lost it, and I needed to have it replaced. And it was the first time I ever had a delivery issue with Amazon. Not the last, but it was the first, so I remember that. And then Seven Dust Animosity in this shitty, like, barely a cover thing. This actually isn't the full album. This came extra with it. This was a 2-song EP live CD, but I have the actual album somewhere else. Another 3 Days Grace song, album. What was on here? Oh, Just Like You. Yeah, you were only in my way. Yeah. Yeah, I guess I did like 3 Days Grace a little bit more back in the day, but okay. I got that. The soundtrack to Eyes Wide Shut. I bought this in Connecticut because that's where my father lived at the time, and I went to visit him for a weekend in Connecticut. And I remember we went to the theater to go see the Blair Witch Project in '99, and then I bought this CD from the attached Barnes & Noble because it had Baby Did a Bad Bad Thing, it had the waltz from the opening of that song, it had the music from the orgy and everything, and the boom, 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 boom. So that's stuff I liked. So yeah, I own the Eyes Wide Shut soundtrack. The soundtrack to the Borat movie. Why did I buy this? It has the "Throw the Jew Down the Well" song, which was from the HBO series The Ali G Show. That's where, well, I think Borat got his start on his UK show, but I was introduced to Borat through the Ali G Show on HBO, where he played Ali G, Borat, and Bruno, all three of which got their own movies. Bruno's and Borat's were like hidden camera, man on the street type stuff, whereas Ali G was a more traditional narrative. Ali G in the House, still a pretty funny movie. But yeah, so it had funny songs. There's a fake a fake national anthem for Kazakhstan on here. So yeah. Another Seven Dust album. I think this might have been their first album. I remember the songs Black and Bitch. Yeah. Own it. Don't have much to say about it. The Bride of Chucky soundtrack. Fun fact about Bride of Chucky. There was a period before I turned 17 and could see R-rated films by myself where my mother or stepfather, whomever, really didn't want to continue to accompany me to movies they had no interest in seeing. So they would attempt to buy me a ticket so that I could go see it, like sneak in, whatever, and then they would go see something else. But they tried to do this for Bride of Chucky on like a Sunday night where the theater was dead, so it didn't work. So I ended up not seeing Bride of Chucky until it came on video later. But I got the soundtrack, and the soundtrack is mostly new metal stuff, as you would expect for a movie that came out in 1998. So it's got White Zombie, it's got Cold Chamber, Judas Priest, Typo Negative, Slayer, Stabbing Westward, Power Man 5000, Static X, Kidney Thieves. Yep, it's all the usual suspects for new metal soundtracks at the time. The From Dusk Till Dawn soundtrack. This is another Robert Rodriguez movie soundtrack. It's also got Tito and Tarantula. I like their song After Dark, which is used in the Selma Hayek dance scene and was also used in a movie called Commandments, this Aidan Quinn, Courtney Cox movie no one remembers. Maybe because it was a weirdly tonally inconsistent. Like sometimes it tried to be a comedy, sometimes it tried to be like a version of Seven. I liked it at the time. I haven't revisited it since, but it was in that song there. But there's some good stuff in here. Dark Knight, which is the opening credit song. Yeah, it's got some more dialogue stuff in it. It's got some score from Graham Revel. Yeah, it's got some good stuff. The Jerky Boys 3, as I was saying. This one was not as funny as 1 or 2 to me in my young teen years, so I didn't buy any more of their albums after this. I think they came out with one more after this that I never bought or listened to. I don't remember many of these calls, so I can't remember if I liked any of them that much, but I know I didn't like the album enough to continue buying Jerky Boy CDs. The Night at the Roxbury soundtrack, because this was full of early 90s dance pop music. So, yeah, What Is Love by Hathaway, and it's got some 80s stuff in here too. It's got Cyndi Lauper, Disco Inferno. It's got Do You Think I'm Sexy by Rod Stewart, pop music. But yeah, it's also got No Mercy. It's got Ace of Base. This Is Your Night by Amber. The Be My Lover. La da da dee da 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 da. So yeah, it's all shit I like. So. Skinny Puppy, The Shingles Collection. I believe this is like a best of B-sides album. I got this without ever hearing a Skinny Puppy song before because Ogre from Skinny Puppy was in Repo the Genetic Opera, so I'm like, oh, let me check out his music. And then I listened to this, and I did not like it at all. I think there's one song on here I ended up liking, and I don't remember which one it is. Is it Tormentor, maybe? Yeah, but I didn't like Skinny Puppy, so I never listened to any of their stuff again. I own a Nickelback CD, all the right reasons. I think I got this one for Side of a Bullet, which is like Nickelback's like hardest song, even though they don't really go that hard. I was never really on the Nickelback hate train. Like, I mean, if you're gonna say there's like a band that's the worst, like obviously that's Imagine Dragons. I would listen to all the entire discography of nothing but Nickelback for the rest of my life rather than listen to a single Imagine Dragons song ever. A Photograph, which is kind of a meme song at this point. It's got Animals. It's got Rockstar. I mean, there's, they're generic radio rock. It's fine. They're basically like, our generation's Aerosmith. Aerosmith fans are going to come out to me for that one. But I mostly got this one for Side of a Bullet. But yeah, I was never hugely hating on Nickelback. 10 Years, The Autumn Effect. What did I get this album for? Oh, Wasteland. Isn't that the Change My Good Intentions? Yeah, this is an album I bought for one song. I don't remember thinking too highly of it, so I don't really have many comments about that. This is the Season 2 soundtrack for Californication. I wasn't lying. I was really into this show for some reason. It's got Rob Zombie on it. It's got Warren Zevon. It's got Sheryl Crow. It's got Nick Cave. So, yeah. And this is an Evanescence CD. Which one is this? This is... I don't know what the name of this one is. What does this one have? This might be their third or fourth album. I don't recognize any of the tracks, so I probably didn't like this one that much because I don't remember any of the songs. But it's an Evanescence CD. Back for more. I guess I bought a second CD for 10 years. I have no recollection of buying this, and I have no recollection of any of the songs on this. I'm sure I listened to it at least once. But there you go. I don't... Considering I wasn't a huge fan of that first album, I don't know why I bought the second one. Woodstock 94. Obviously, there was the original Woodstock, the famous music fest. And there was Woodstock 99, which, ended in the fires, and you had all the controversy about rampant sexual assault. And then in the middle of those was good old Woodstock 94, which just had the Mud People and mid-90s alternative. So yeah, I mean, this had like Blues Travelers, Melissa Etheridge, The Cranberries, Blind Melon, Green Day, Salt and Pepper, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Primus, Aerosmith, Nine Inch Nails, Metallica, Sheryl Crow, Crosby, Stills and Nash, Violent Femmes, Collective Soul, Candlebox, Bob Dylan, Peter Gabriel. Weird mix. Also, never seen this before. A giant sticker that says disc made in Austria. So yeah, this was a 2-disc. It's actually 2 different components rather than like the little mini flipper thing in the middle. But yeah. And I remember watching, I think Woodstock 94, if you wanted to watch it live, it was on pay-per-view. Where again, you could call up a phone number and order it. Or you could watch the pre-taped stuff later on MTV. I believe like Kurt Loder was there or something. Another soundtrack, Tales from the Crypt, Bordello of Blood. I did like the main title song from Anthrax, which is like, I sleep to beat the sunrise. And then it has some classic rock tracks like Jailbreak from Thin Lizzy, which is a great song, Ballroom Blitz by Sweet. The Scorpions are on there. I love the Scorpions. All Right Now, famous song. So there was some good stuff in there. I think I bought this before I actually saw the movie because I didn't see Bordello of Blood in theaters. I saw it much, much later on either HBO or edited for TV on Comedy Central and then later on HBO. But yeah, I was also weirdly a Dennis Miller and an Angie Everhart fan back then. And Erica Laniak's also in the movie, but yeah, I think it was because I didn't peg Dennis Miller as a conservative back then. I just thought he just kind of was like the sarcastic guy who used like a giant vocabulary. And Angie Everhart, she was in a lot of decent like softcore stuff back then. She was in Jade, and I think she was either married to or dated Sylvester Stallone for a while. So that's how I knew who she was. This is the other Lindsay Lohan album I own, a little more personal, in parentheses, raw. Guess how much I paid for this? 1 cent. Also, again, I bought it at the exact same time as the other Lindsay Lohan. I don't know if there was just some warehouse that was like, please take these Lindsay Lohan CDs off of our hands, but this has a really cringy song, which is like Confessions of a Broken Heart, that kind of goes like, daughter to father, daughter to father. Though she does do a reasonably decent cover of Stevie Nicks' Fleetwood Mac Edge of 17. But I think I liked the last album better. But I mean, they cost a penny. They don't even make pennies anymore. Or they started to wind down penny production as I'm recording this. So whatever, you know. Let's see what else. Oh, this is one of many Ozzy albums I'll have. Also a double one. This is a live Ozzy album called Ozzy Live and Loud. For a while, they were releasing all of the Ozzy albums on CDs, kind of like this, where the original cover art was like a small square, and then it had just Ozzy's name and like bright, like large letters, and then like digitally remastered. So I have a lot that just kind of have like this basic cover art design. And then, kind of annoyingly, the list of the songs in the back is in a circle, which makes it not the easiest to read. But it has a lot of his big hits in here. So, yeah, Paranoid, I Don't Want to Change the World, Mr. Crowley, a lot of stuff that's Bark at the Moon, a lot of stuff that's also on Ozman Cometh, but they're just live versions of them, so... this is a Nirvana live album. I have a lot of Nirvana. From the Muddy Banks of the Wishclaw. It's a live album. It was recorded after. It must have been recorded after In Utero because there's some songs from In Utero in here. So yeah, it has a copyright of 1996, which would have been about 2 years after Cobain died. So I think Sub Pop or whomever was just trying to milk as much out of Nirvana as they could by releasing like old recordings. But yeah, there's songs from all 3 of their studio albums. I forget if Aneurysm's on one of them or if that's a B-side, but yeah. So I have that. I guess since I'm already talking about Nirvana, this is kind of a separate thing I usually keep somewhere else, but there's this big... it's called With the Lights Out. It's a 3 CD and 1 DVD set, and it's got like a collectible booklet in it, and it's got all this stuff. But it's a lot of. This is where the release of You're Right. When they kind of released that as like a late single in the 2000s. I don't know why, but there's a whole bunch of shit on this CD set. There's a bunch of live show recordings. Some of them are rough. There's some demo recordings, B-sides, solo acoustic stuff. It's just kind of a whole like collection. A lot of them were like previously unreleased too, which was kind of cool, but it's just kind of one of those things where it's like if you are really into Nirvana and Kurt Cobain, they had this set for that, so I have that as well. This is a best of album for the band Live. Do you remember Live? They were kind of like a little bit more Christian version of R.E.M. But this was a CD and a DVD, I believe, so it had... a CD with 19 songs, and then a DVD that had some videos on there. But their biggest songs were like I Alone, and then what's the other song? Lightning Crashes, which is a little Jesus-y, but I didn't realize that at the time. There's also a song they have in White Discussion that I really like. I think that's what it's called, right? Something like that. But it's in the movie Virtuosity, and it plays very briefly during a scene where Denzel is broken out of a jail van by Sid 6.7, played by Russell Crowe. And it kind of goes like, I talk of freedom, you talk of the flag. All overused on here too, yeah. So I kind of soured a little bit on them because they just seem a little too Christian-y when I listen to them these days, but I did like them at the time. I remember the CD was also expensive and the price like never went down, so I think I bought it with like a gift card for somewhere, but yeah. And this is Sugar Cult. I showed the other album from them, and then I bought this one too. This had the song Bouncing Off the Walls, which I remember there was a list of like the most annoying DVD menus of all time, and one of them was for National Lampoon's Van Wilder, which was one of Ryan Reynolds' early starring roles, and it was because it was just like a close-up of a woman's tits, like in a like a bra top or a halter top, and the song just went, I'm bouncing off the walls again, like on a record. So if you like fell asleep to it, it would it would really annoy you. But there's one really good song in here I like called Pretty Girl. Daddy's Little Defect, I think I've heard as well prior to having the album. So it's kind of okay. It's they're not a band who I was like, they're kind of like in that like Blink 182 kind of lane, but there was some good stuff in there. The soundtrack to Juno. There's some interesting stuff. I don't know if the songs on here could be called like shoegaze or whatever. I did really like the fact that this had the Sonic Youth cover of Superstar, because not only is it in this movie, it was used in the American trailers for the French extremity horror film High Tension. It's not in the movie itself, but it was in the trailer, so I liked that I had access to it from here. There's also All the Young Dudes by Mott the Hoople, which is a great 70s song. And the Moldy Peaches, Anyone Else But You. There's also the version of the song that Michael Cera and Elliot Page pre-transition sang at the end of the movie. But yeah, I liked Juno when it came out. I think there's some like negative interpretations of it, or people just kind of got tired of what's her name, Diablo Cody's dialogue a bit, but I didn't. But Lisa Frankenstein I really like too. She wrote that, but anyway. This is the second album by a band called Framing Hanley, and I'll talk more about Framing Hanley when I get to their first album, because that'll be somewhere in here. All I'll say right now is that I really, really liked the first album by Framing Hanley, who I believe I first heard of through Kevin Madison and Evans Blue. And then, so I bought the second album without hearing anything on it, based on how much I love that first album. And the second album is like a concept album about going to LA and getting fame and all that stuff. And it's not very good. I'm just gonna say that. It's not very good. So I didn't buy anything else from Framing Hanley after that. This is another album by Paramore. I don't know what order they came out in. What did this have? This had Emergency. Yeah, not as good as the other album that I have from them. I think I'm not sure if I bought this because of a song or if I just bought this based on the strength of the first album that I have of theirs, but there's Riot, I don't know. The Scream 2 soundtrack, which the songs in the Scream 2 soundtrack are not very good, but at the time I really loved Scream 2. I still love Scream 2. I think it's probably the best of the Scream sequels, which is kind of a hot take. But a lot of the songs on here are not of my taste. I do like She Said by Collective Soul, which plays over the closing credits of the movie. But otherwise, there's Cottonmouth Kings, so they're that ICP crap I don't like. Sugar Ray, D'Angelo, Dave Matthews Band is this one. There's also a remix of Red Right Hand that is not good at all. Everclear and Tonic are okay, and Foo Fighters I like, but yeah, this was not the best CD, so I mostly bought it just on my love of the franchise, which should be obvious at this point. And this is the full Seven Dust album that I had the extra disc with the two live EP things there. This had some good stuff in there. There's a song called Christmas Day that's actually really good. The song called Trust, Damage, Follow. Yeah, this was pretty good. It's not as good as the other Seven Dust album I showed you, but I think this is also a Christmas gift one year. But this was a good album. I like this one. Kitty, Funeral for Yesterday. Kind of like I said with OTEP earlier, I liked the harder rock metal bands that were mostly female fronted because you could hear lyrics more, and that's the same thing with Kitty. This one's less metal than the other album, which I'll get to later, Brackish. But there's some good stuff here. Funeral for Yesterday. I think this one also had a 45-minute DVD that was like an EPK almost of it. But yeah, I like the songs on here too. It's maybe not as iconic. I don't know if Brackish is iconic, but this was like a later. Yeah, this was 2006. This was a later album by Kitty, but I like the songs on it. It's a good album. The Drive soundtrack, because I loved the movie Drive. I even own the jacket still. But yeah, Night Call, Real Human, Real Hero, Real Human Being. There's some actual songs on here. The Chromatics, who I like, and they're also from Twin Peaks: The Return. And then there's some score stuff on here, but yeah, those was, I mean, when Drive came out, if you were a huge fan of the movie Drive, then you listened to the soundtrack all the time and you bought the jacket, which I did both, so there you go. OTEP, like I was talking about, Smash the Control Machine. This is my favorite of their albums. This has Rise, Rebel, Resist, Sweet Tooth, Smash the Control Machine, Head, which is the song from True Blood that got me into them. So this is a great, fantastic, like female-fronted heavy metal leftist album. This is basically like female leftist Rage Against the Machine. Real Rage Against the Machine is leftist on its own, but yeah, really great album. Excellent album. And then Linkin Park Hybrid Theory. When this album came out, it took my high school by storm, or at least the high school I went to. There was a faction of rather popular kids who were into like Wu-Tang Clan and like rap and stuff, despite the fact that there was like one black student in my high school. But that was what they were listening to, and then the rest of us were listening to more like the rock guys. So and so if you were into rock, then this one was big. And then if you looked at, even this one crossed over from just the rock people into like the pop and the mainstream, and I think because they had like rap lyrics in there with Mike there. It ended up kind of, and then when it was sold, it was on like the top selling albums for like a year or like 100 weeks or something crazy like that too. This was like a super popular album when it came out. And yeah, I don't think there's like any skips on this album. This is like a no skips 10/10 album. This is great. I still like have the lyrics memorized to a lot of these songs, even the ones that weren't like the big ones, like One Step Closer or In the End or anything like that, or Crawling. Forget if Points of Authority might have been my favorite on there, or Paper Cut. But yeah, excellent album. This is a Rolling Stones greatest hits album called Hot Rocks. It specifically covers the period of 1964 to 1971, so it's specifically best of their early stuff. And that's mostly their best stuff. Outside of Gimme Shelter, which was one of their later songs, I think all of their best stuff was like in the 60s. Also, I'm controversially not a Beatles fan. I think the Beatles are the most overrated anything in the history of everything. And one of the things I always say is that, you know, the Beatles didn't do anything that the Rolling Stones didn't do better just a little bit later. So, you know, Jagger and Richards much better than Lennon and McCartney. But this has got great. It's got, you know, Satisfaction, Get Off My Cloud, Mother's Little Helper, Paint It Black, Under My Thumb, Ruby Tuesday, you know, Street Fight Man, Sympathy for the Devil. Oh, I guess Gimme Shelter is on here. No, never mind. Wild Horses, Brown Sugar. Yeah, I thought Gimme Shelter was later. I don't know. But yeah, all of their best songs are on this fucking thing. So yeah, great album, obviously. This is another OTEP album, Atavist. What is on here? Oh, Adam to Adam. I remember that one. Drunk on the Blood of Saints. Yeah, there's some good stuff on here too. Not as good as Smash the Control Machine, but also a very good OTEP album. And then the soundtrack to Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, which was my birthday movie of the year it came out. Yeah, this had some fun stuff on it. Sex Bob-omb, which is the band, the fictional band in the movie. You got some stuff from T-Rex here, Metric. Metric and what's the other band I always confuse with Metric? Silver Sun Pickups. I really like those two bands, even to this day still. I think I burned their CDs, though. I don't think I own them. But yeah, the Metric Black Sheep that Brie Larson lip syncs in the movie is a great song. Under My Thumb from the Rolling Stones is also on here. Otherwise, you got Beck on here. You got, Crash and the Boys, a few things on here. I mean, yeah, it's got some good stuff. As we go toward more canceled people, the soundtrack to Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, because Joss Whedon. I mean, I was a fan of his stuff. After that 1X got me into Buffy and Angel, I went full force on Joss Whedon's stuff. So Dr. Horrible, Firefly and Serenity, Dollhouse, all that stuff I still liked. It's very interesting to look at some of that stuff knowing what we know now about Whedon, especially Dollhouse. I still think the show is really good, but some of it is him telling on himself, let's just say that. I still really like Dr. Horrible though. I think the songs are still funny. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris is really good in there. Apparently, he's a little problematic too from some stuff. Um, Felicia Day and Nathan Fillion, of course. So yeah, good. I think they were going to do a sequel to that, and they never did. Maybe because of weed and stuff. I guess. I guess people don't really like Dave Grohl because of the Affair reveal, but Foo Fighters' greatest hits, because I do like Foo Fighters stuff. Yeah, Everlong is on here, Pretender. It doesn't have my favorite Foo Fighters song, which is Tired of You, which was in the Chris Rock movie, I Think I Love My Wife. That's not on here, I think, because that's a little bit more of a deep cut. Oh, My Hero from Varsity Blues is on here, though, and All My Life, but yeah. Otherwise, aside from missing that one song, which probably isn't considered greatest hits to anyone except me, it's got all the goods from them. Their movie really sucked, though. Remember that? Studio 666? Metallica, self-titled Black Album. Of course I own it. I mean, Enter Sandman, Sad But True, Unforgiven, Wherever I May Roam. Nothing Else Matters. I mean, it's great. I think One's not on here. I guess that's really one of the only other major Metallica songs that wasn't on that album. And then another Lisa Loeb, because of course I have all of her stuff. No Fairy Tale. I actually got this is from 2012, so this is one of the last CDs I bought. I actually got this by mail from a store called Newberry Comics, which if you're originally from New England, Newberry Comics is pretty well known there. They sell comics and books and movies and music and all that stuff. But there was a thing where if you ordered it from them, you could get a second booklet that is signed. So I have that somewhere else, and I just have the regular booklet in here. But yeah, I mostly bought this because through them so that I could get her signed. There's one more Lisa Loeb CD I have signed as well. That might actually be the latest CD I ever bought. That's a little bit after this. But yeah, it's not her best album. No Fairy Tale is a good track. But yeah, not her best album, but I mostly got it because I wanted something signed from her. I do have one other thing signed from her when I actually met her at the concert. It's a little postcard type thing. But anyway. Another Marilyn Manson canceled. This is this Heart-Shaped Glasses? It doesn't have the, yeah. It's a shame because I really like the songs on this one too. It's hard for me to read them, but If I Was Your Vampire and stuff like that. And Heart-Shaped Glasses. Of course, now we know when he was making the video for that song, he assaulted Evan Rachel Wood, so that's or at least the extended version of the video, which I don't think you can find anymore. There's a much cut down version of it on YouTube, but yeah, again, like the other Marilyn Manson ones, I have a hard time listening to them now. This is another Parabel album. These electric pages have been unplugged, so it's they're unplugged album. It's got Bend, which is one of my favorite songs from, Evans Blue or Parabel. Bend was a song that was on the canceled third Evans Blue album that he ended up leaking, and then they put a different version of it on another Parabel album, and then this one I think is the acoustic version of it. It's from 2011. Good album. I still like Parabel. I don't know if that band is still going on or anything. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. This is basically a greatest hits album. It's a 2-discer. Yeah, I love Tom Petty. It's great. I was very sad when he died. But this has all the basic ones. Refugee, American Girl, Free Fallin', Don't Come Around Here No More. Yeah. I think Mary Jane's Last Dance, obviously. I think the only disappointment I had with this is that I'm a big fan of some of the songs he had on the soundtrack to this movie called She's the One. It was an Edward Burns movie in the 90s, and Tom Petty did the entire soundtrack for that movie. And there's a song, I can't remember the name of it, but it goes Even Walls Fall Down, You Got a Heart So Big It Would Crush This Town. Great song. He has some other songs on there, and none of them are on here. But outside of that, this has most of the main hits that you think of when you think of Tom Petty. And I really do love Tom Petty. Great singer. Oingo Boingo, Dead Man's Party. Oh, man. So this is the band that Danny Elfman was the lead singer of, and then the band disbanded, for lack of a better way to phrase that, because Danny Elfman started getting degenerative hearing and couldn't perform concerts anymore. Now that I'm thinking about all these canceled people who are in my CD collection, Danny Elfman has also had accusations against him. Jesus. Still, I do love Oingo Boingo. So this one has basically the three best Oingo Boingo songs are on here, according to me. Dead Man's Party, which is from that Rodney Dangerfield movie. No One Lives Forever, which is in Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. And then Weird Science, which is the theme song for Weird Science. I do also love Just Another Day, which isn't from anything, but except for this album. Though I do think even No One Lives Forever is probably my favorite Oingo Boingo song, but I actually prefer the farewell concert live version where Danny Elfman does some other like screaming and stuff during it. But the album version is what is in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. But I really do love Oingo Boingo. They're great, like quintessential 80s. Muse. Really like the band Muse. How did I get into the band Muse? Well, I was mentioning that movie High Tension earlier. A song that is in that movie, and not just in the trailer, is Newborn by Muse, which is not on this album. This was a later album of theirs. This is from, can I see the copyright on here? 2009. Okay. This one has a lot of great leftist anthems like Uprising and Resistance and Unnatural Selection and stuff like that. I remember I went to a Bernie Sanders rally in 2016 when he was first running for the Democratic primary, and they played, I think they played Resistance or Uprising or one of them, like ad nauseum before and after his speech. So I think actually it was mostly before when they were waiting for it. But yeah, so this is Muse the Resistance. Uprising, that was the one they played. But yeah, I really do like Muse. Lady Gaga, The Fame. This was kind of when I started getting a little bit more into pop that wasn't just from the 80s or 90s, and probably because this first album from Lady Gaga really reminded me of like early 80s Madonna. So Just Dance was big, Love Game, Paparazzi, Poker Face. There was some really good stuff on here. So this was, it's very hard for me to... I mean, this isn't a new quote-unquote album anymore, but it's very hard for me to get into new music anymore. My music taste is very much stuck in the 80s and 90s, so if I like anything post, 2005, it's very rare. But when I heard some of Lady Gaga on the radio, I'm like, oh, this takes me back because this has a very 80s sound to it. Similar to how I also like The Weeknd, though I don't own any CDs from him, or any vinyl records for that matter. But yeah, just talking about that. This is an Ozzy Osbourne album, Diary of a Madman. Like I said before, it has the original cover art and is this like tiny square and then has his name on the side here. Flying High Again's on here, Believer, and Diary of a Madman. Yeah, I guess it's only 8. I guess 8 is enough to be a regular album, right? Not an EP, but yeah, it's a short album. Not one of my favorites of his, but... Well, we already talked about the Three Doors Down being problematic, but Three Doors Down, Away from the Sun, I did like them before I found out they were all MAGA. Nothing really super I guess When I'm Gone would be the biggest song of theirs on here. Oh, and Here Without You, yeah, that was a big song as well. So yeah, still some good stuff on here, but again, it's sucks to know that they're MAGA. No More Tears, Ozzy Osbourne, again, that same kind of design there. No More Tears itself is a great song, but there's also Mama, I'm Coming Home, Ozzy on here, Don't Want to Change the World, Desire, which is a good song. Hellraiser, which, the Hellraiser song is sung by Lemmy from Motorhead on the soundtrack and in the movie Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. But here is the Ozzy Osbourne version, so it was really cool to hear that version, because the first time I ever heard a non-Lemmy version was when I got this album. Like, oh, I wonder who originated the song first. Was it his or was it Lemmy's? Time for me to get another stack. Lisa Loeb, The Purple Tape. Now, this is kind of a deep cut for hardcore Lisa Loeb fans. So When Lisa Loeb first went to college at Brown University, she had a duo that was called Liz and Lisa. And I think they had one like self-produced little tape that they would just like sell out of their car or whatever after concerts, or whatever gigs they could get. And then Liz dropped off, and Lisa Loeb went out on her own, and she cut her own like tape to sell at concerts and whatever, and it was called the Purple Tape. And for years, you could only get a copy of this through like bootlegs because there just weren't that many that were made when she was, an up and coming wannabe singer in college. And so later, she finally re-released it as like a CD you could get. So there's a CD with the songs, and then there's a second disc that has like an interview with her where she talks about all the songs. Because some of the songs made it to other albums like Snow Day, Hurricane, Guessing Game. Some of those are on Tales, her first studio album. But then there's stuff here that are more like B-sides and stuff that you can't really get anywhere else, like Days Were Different, Come Back Home. Probably one of my favorite Lisa Loeb songs of all time is number 2 on here, Train Songs, which never made it to any other album but this. Also, this is another album that I got from Newberry Comics because I got a second booklet that she signed. So I have that somewhere else as well. I have that in another location where I have some autographs and things. But yeah, I really like this. This is very raw and early. Like the copyright on here is 1992, but the actual disc came out like in this form much, much later. Marilyn Manson, Mechanical Animals, same thing. It's still a really good album, but I have a hard time listening to a lot of stuff on here because of everything associated with him. But like, yeah, The Dope Show is on here, some other good stuff. Perfect Circle, 13th Step. This is their concert album, which is sort of about 12-step programs and different sides of addiction. This has, Weak and Powerless, Blue, The Outsider, which is one of their more well-known songs. I don't know. If you put a gun to my head, I'd probably say that this is Perfect Circle's best album track for track. Even if their first album, Mère de Noms, maybe has some better songs, individual songs on it, I think this is a more solid album to listen to from beginning to end. But yeah, there's some great stuff on here, and I do like the concept that it covers like different aspects of addiction. The Outsider, of course, is from like a non-sympathetic relative's POV. Blue is like about Halo is about judging somebody else who's addicted when you've already been in recovery because you were still, you still did everything they did before and stuff. So yeah, really good shit. Alice in Chains, Dirt. This was like a re-release, so it has like a little slip cover on it, and then the actual like regular album here and all grunge stuff. This has a lot of the bigger well-known tracks from them. So Dem Bones is on here, Rooster's on here, Wood is in here, and Godsmack, the song that the band Godsmack then took to make their own. Here it's about heroin. I remember I read Sully Erna, the lead singer of Godsmack, later wrote a memoir, and he came up with some like BS meaning behind Godsmack after it while acknowledging it still came from the song about like, I don't know, someone like getting a busted lip or whatever. But yeah, really, really good album as far as, other grunge music that's like not Nirvana and stuff. Alice in Chains is always great. The Goo Goo Dolls' Greatest Hits album. This has most of the songs that you know from the Goo Goo Dolls: Black Balloon, Iris, Dizzy. My one problem with this album is that one of their most famous songs, Name, the original version of that song is not on this album. It's a newer, shittier version of the song. So it's just a worse, quote-unquote, newer version of Name. So it doesn't have the original version. That is a pain in the ass. But all the other big songs are the way you remember them. So I guess there's a remix of Feel the Silence, but that's not a very important song to me. No, Slide is on here as well. So yeah, Iris was, again, I considered it my favorite song for quite a long time. But there's some really other great stuff on here from the Goo Goo Dolls. Just Say Ozzy. Again, it has that same similar cover art style. This is 6 tracks, so I think this can be considered an EP. This has 2 songs I really like from Ozzy, though, that aren't anywhere else. There's Miracle Man, which is about like Jimmy Swaggart and evangelical preachers, and then Bloodbath in Paradise, which is about the Manson murders, and those are really good. But then there's also just the album ends with 2 Black Sabbath covers, Sweet Leaf and War Pigs. So not a bad little EP, though. I really do like those first 2 songs that are listed on here. Smile Empty Soul. Okay. This was a band. I think I discovered them through the Punisher soundtrack, the Thomas Jane one. And so I got their album, and I listened to this album a lot because this really tied into the depression I was feeling at the time. So the copyright on this is 2003. I probably got the album closer to like 2004, 2005. But I was also not doing very well emotionally at that time. Maybe actually a bit later. It may be closer to like 2007, 2008 that I got this. But there's just a lot of really depressing, hard songs on here that I was listening to a lot. The song Therapy, which is track 5 in there. Or there's the song Every Sunday, which is like attacking like evangelical right-wing Christians and stuff. Bottom of a Bottle, which I think is their most famous song. And Silhouettes was a great song too, but I really like that song Therapy. But yeah, this was another soundtrack to my depression. However, because this was a soundtrack to later depression and not to like the worst of my depression, I don't have as hard a time listening to some of these songs like I do the Break the Cycle. Okay, Framing Hanley, The Moment. So, like I said, I heard about Framing Hanley through Evans Blue, and eventually some members of this band joined Kevin Madison to do Parabel. But I got this album based on the Evans Blue recommendation, and I really do think this is a great album where almost every song is really great. So here's what happened with Framing Hanley that messed them up. So I have the first printing of this album, which only has 11 songs. After this album came out, Framing Hanley decided to do a little joking cover of Lil Wayne's song Lollipop. And unfortunately, that's the song that took off. That's what became a single, and that's what they cut a video for. So then they did a second printing of this album that also had Lollipop as track 12. Now, as Alien Ant Farm can tell you, or Natalie Imbruglia for that matter, if your first biggest single is a cover, you're probably not going to have a career. So this did not work out as well for Framing Hanley as I think they were hoping. So then they came out with that second album, and it wasn't very good, and just, poof, there goes them. And now barely anyone's heard of this band, and they just think of them because of the joking Lollipop cover. It is a good cover. But it's a shame because a lot of the great songs on here, Hear Me Now, Home, Built for Sin, there's some really good stuff on here, but to a lot of people, if they've either never heard of this band or they're just, they're that band that did that rock cover of Lollipop. Shame. The soundtrack to Shock Treatment. Shock Treatment is the quasi-sequel to the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Brad and Janet from Rocky Horror are in this movie, but they're played by different actors. But then other actors and people and filmmakers responsible for Rocky Horror are included in this. It's just that Tim Curry is not in here, Barry Bostwick's not in here, and Susan Sarandon are not in here. So the movie bombed, and even a lot of big fans of Rocky Horror don't really like it. I really like Shock Treatment. I rewatched it maybe a year and a half ago or something when I showed my partner it. But I do like the music in here, which is why, because like Rocky Horror, it's also a musical, but I really did like the songs. So yeah, like I really do like a lot of these songs. Also, there was originally going to be a direct sequel to Rocky Horror with all the same characters. It was called like Rocky Horror Wears Heels or something like that. But then Tim Curry didn't want to do it, and Jim Sharman, the director of that movie, didn't want to make a direct sequel, so that fell apart. So a lot of the songs on here had their lyrics reworked from stuff that was originally closer to Rocky Horror. So sometimes they switched some stuff to, instead of being about like Rocky or Frankenfurter, they're about Janet or the people at this like Denton TV station thing. So fun fact about that. Another Marilyn Manson, High and Low. Not sure I need to talk much about him anymore. Yeah. I liked the album at the time. Rent. I'm a big fan of the musical Rent. This is the soundtrack to the Broadway cast recording. I got into Rent with the movie, and I know that a lot of Rent heads, as the fans are called, don't like some of the changes that they made in the movie. I have some issues with the movie as well. Chris Columbus has like that warm feeling to his movies, and I don't think that is supposed to. Rent should be a little bit more gritty and grounded with what these people's situation are, but okay. But I still like the music. I still like they made a couple changes to the timeline in the movie. I'm totally fine with that. The one issue I have with the original cast is that the original actress who played Nadine, I think she has a terrible, very annoying singing voice. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I do not like her voice at all, which is kind of sacrilege to Rent fans, but that's it. In the movie, she's played by Rosario Dawson, no problem. But aside from that, I have no other issue because almost the entire original cast came back for the movie, so a lot of the songs sound the same, though there's some like lyrical changes, and there's some songs in the play that didn't make it to the movie, and the order of some of the songs are different. Like Seasons of Love is at the beginning of Act 2 in the play versus it's at the very beginning of the movie, etc. But I have this. This was actually a gift from somebody. Death Proof. Quentin Tarantino soundtrack. Chick Habits around here. This is great. There's also Down in Mexico, which is only in the full-length version, not in the Grindhouse cut. But yeah, Tarantino movies always have great soundtracks, so for a while I got all of them. Plus my pal Jordan Ladd is in the movie, so it's cool to have that here too. Have to see, are there any pictures of her in the booklet? I haven't looked at the booklet in a while. Nope. Just checking. There we go. Good soundtrack though. It's got some good tunes on there. Chick Habit's probably my favorite, but I also like Down in Mexico. Here we go. One of my all-time favorite albums, and this is an album not many people have heard of, so I tend to recommend this one because this is a lot easier to Google than that Pete album. This is Evans Blue's first album, The Melody and the Energetic Nature of Volume. Absolutely one of my all-time favorite albums. 11 tracks on here, 10/10 album, no skips, excellent. Cold But I'm Still Here, which is track 3, was the single off of it, and there is a video for that. But every song on here is fucking excellent. Also, track 7, Possession, is a cover of a Sarah McLachlan song. It's great. If you're not familiar with that song, Sarah McLachlan had a stalker who wrote some creepy letters to her, and she took some of the phrases from those letters and made them the lyrics. And then, much like I'll Be Watching You from The Police, some people have used the Sarah McLachlan version as like a love song at their wedding, and like, no, that's a creepy stalker song. Don't do that. But yeah, this is absolutely fantastic. Like, if this is not my all-time favorite album of all time, then it is like top 3. It is just a magnificent album. Absolutely love it. And this is why I pretty much followed every musical project that Kevin Madison did from here on out. But this album and the second one, which I'll get to, great. After that, don't listen to anything else Evans Blue put out because they kicked Kevin Madison out and they were just a piece of shit band after that. But those first 2 albums, primo. And then the soundtrack to Rent the Movie, which I listen to more than the stage because I like these recordings better. That's just the way it is. 2 discs. The songs are from the movie. There's also a couple songs on here that were deleted from the movie, but they're on the deleted scenes of like the DVD, and they're on here too. But yeah, I listened to this, sung along, all the stuff when the movie came out. This was my Thanksgiving movie. Well, this was one of 2 Thanksgiving movies the year I saw this as well. Another Marilyn Manson. I have a lot of these. Golden Age of Grotesque. Really good songs on here too. This is the new shit from which was in the Hatchet movie, but again, same thing I said about all the other ones applies to that one too. Another Ozzy, Bark at the Moon. Anything else on here besides Bark at the Moon that's a big Not really. Yeah, I remember not really liking this album as much as some other ones, but Bark at the Moon is a good title track. Disturbed Indestructible. Again, I've talked about some of the other Disturbed albums. This one had some good stuff in here, though. Inside the Fire is a really good song. Yeah, that's the Devin Won't Go to Heaven song. That was good. Yeah, I like some of the other ones more, but good. The soundtrack to Repo the Genetic Opera. Okay, so Repo was Darren Lynn Bousman's musical that he made after he made a couple Saw movies. I forget if he made it after Saw 4 or if he made it between Saw 3 and 4. But regardless, Lionsgate Twisted Pictures, they made those Saw movies, and I guess he tried to cash in his check with them to make this, and Lionsgate had no faith in it because it was a rock opera. So they didn't advertise it at all. They didn't release it in any theaters, really, certainly none near me. And so I remember the place this was most promoted heavily was on MySpace, where the filmmakers and the cast created like profiles for the characters and stuff. I eventually blind bought the movie on DVD. I got it on Blu-ray shortly after. They're coming out with a 4K, and they're going to put it in Regal Cinemas later this year. But the funny thing about this is that this is the CD soundtrack that they put out as an Amazon exclusive, and it was a print-on-demand CDR. There was a special edition that had extra songs on it that I think was a Hot Topic exclusive that I never saw in stores. So there is a different version, but this was the, you can even see like the print-on-demand barcode on there. But yeah, this was a manufacture-on-demand disc for the Repo soundtrack because they didn't think anybody would want it. The soundtrack to the Book of Mormon Broadway musical. Still never seen it performed live on stage, but the South Park guys did it, and it won the Tony, so I got it when it was available. Songs are really cool. I mean, you can argue about how it portrays the Africans and everything, but I think with the heightened tone and what the musical is trying to say, I think it pulls it off, but I also understand people have a problem with that. I don't know if Mormons are offended by it, but I don't give a fuck about them. So another Muse album. This is Black Holes and Revelations. It does suck that Supermassive Black Hole is in that shitty Twilight movie because now it gets associated with that, but there's some other good stuff in here. Starlight is a great song. I like City of Delusion and Knights of Sidonia as well. Map of the Problematics is really cool too, but I think Supermassive Black Hole is the most famous song on here. This is the album I was talking about that my father got me, the Black Sabbath Greatest Hits. 10 songs, a lot of their greatest hits. It's the album version. This particular compilation is a copyright of 1996, but almost all the songs are just the master recordings from the 70s. But yeah, I mean, can't go wrong with the greatest hits of Black Sabbath. Disturbed 10,000 Fists. This has a pretty good cover of Land of Confusion by Genesis on it. I really like this album. This might be my second favorite Disturbed album after the original. I may like, track for track, I might actually like this more than the original, because the original mostly has just Down with the Sickness and Stupefy. This has some other stuff I really like. Stricken, Overburdened, Land of the Confusion cover. Yeah, Pain Redefined. There's some really good stuff on this. Shame about David Draymond. The soundtrack to Poultrygeist, which was probably the last good in-house Troma movie ever made. The movie is partially a musical, so I mostly got it for that, but then there's also some other like songs from like no-name bands from New York that didn't mind like basically licensing their song for free just to get on the soundtrack here. Sequel to Poultrygeist I think comes out either this year or next year. They're making that. I don't know if it's going to be any good, but probably not. The soundtrack to Sweeney Todd, the movie, the Tim Burton movie, one of the last good Tim Burton movies ever made. Yeah, it's Sweeney Todd. If you've seen it, you know the songs. Oh, and I talked about this earlier. This is the absolute first CD I ever bought. Prior to this, all I had were cassettes. The first CD I ever bought was The Lion King, and this is the exact CD. Bought it from Circuit City in 1994. So 32-year-old CD, first CD I ever bought. So I would have been about 10-ish, 9 or 10, depending on what month I got it in. Yeah. It's The Lion King. You know what songs are. And this is one of Godsmack's albums, The Oracle. So, does it have any good things on it? I don't remember a lot of these songs. I don't think I listened to this album very much. What was this, 2010? So yeah, this was at the tail end of me buying CDs. So I don't remember much about whether I like this one or not. Okay, got 2 more piles. This is Boogie Nights 2. Now, you might be saying, there was no sequel to Boogie Nights. Right, this is the sequel to the soundtrack. I don't own Volume 1, but there was so much music in the movie Boogie Nights that they had 2 soundtrack volumes. Why did I buy Volume 2? I think it was only because Volume 1 wasn't available at the store when I went there. The whole reason I bought this was just because back when Boogie Nights came out, I really wanted to see it. And it was one of the few movies, even R-rated movies, that my mother refused to let me see. Because she was one of those weird parents where I was allowed to see almost anything, regardless of violence or swearing or objectionable content or whatever. But she'd throw a conniption fit if something had boobs in it. So I wasn't able to see Boogie Nights. But because I was, by 1997, I was firmly a cinephile. So it was like, I want to see this movie. It's getting all this like awards contention. It seems like it's this big epic about the subject. So I think I just bought the soundtrack to pacify me until I'd eventually get the chance to see it, which I was able to do. I think I've told the story before. I don't know if I've told it on video or not. But eventually went to go see, I think, Patch Adams in theaters, and that was the same night that Boogie Nights premiered on HBO. So I just set my VCR to record it, and that's how I watched it later on. So eventually I did get to see it like around like 1998 or something. But yeah. Anyway, the soundtrack had some really good stuff on it though. It had Jesse's Girl by Rick Springfield. I think that was the first time I was exposed to that song, and I really like Rick Springfield's music. Go figure. He's a little bit problematic too if you look at his relationship with Linda Blair back in the day. So there's plenty of canceled people in my CD collection. So yeah, You Sexy Thing by Hot Chocolates, Mama Told Me Not to Come, Boogie Shoes. It's good stuff if you like 70s like disco stuff, which I eventually got into in teenage years when I first saw Saturday Night Fever and Staying Alive and stuff. This is another album from Kitty, In the Black. Forget what songs are on this one, but yeah, what was this? This from 2009. Okay. I remember liking this, but I can't really think of a lot of the songs from this right now. Again, it's not Brackish, which will be in here somewhere. But yeah, again, same reasons I talked about before. That's why I like Kitty. Pearl Jam. This is Pearl Jam's 10. Again, like that sort of Seattle sound I really liked, but this had most of their like big hits from that area. Like Even Flow is on here, Alive is on here, Black is on here, Jeremy's on here. I think Jeremy's probably my favorite Pearl Jam song. My partner really loves the song Black. And that Black has been kind of popping on TikTok lately. They strip away the music and just have Eddie Vedder, what's his name, Carl Lewis Severson or whatever. His vocals at the end of it with the I Know Someday You'll Have a Beautiful Life stuff. This is from 1991. Yeah, I didn't get it in 1991. I got this sometime later in the 90s. But yeah, it's Pearl Jam. Eric Clapton, The Complete Claptons. This is Eric Clapton's greatest hits. Again, this is a guy who's completely crazy MAGA, but hell of a musician. So again, I feel less bad listening to Clapton than I do like Three Doors Down for being MAGA. I think just because Eric Clapton's been around so long and he's had so much great shit in his discography, then I'm like, okay, if he went right-wing crazy later in life, and most of this stuff is some of his earlier stuff, at least like pre-1992, I think Eric Clapton Unplugged was like the last like big hurrah for him. But this had some of his stuff from Cream, which was a great band. I love that song White Room. It's got Crossroads, got both versions of Layla, Tears in Heaven. I mean, a lot of great stuff there. This has almost the exact same cover of Eric Clapton's memoir, which I also read. Which, you know, there was some right-wing shit in there too, but he wrote it before the Trump and MAGA shit. So it was just kind of interesting to read about all that stuff. Plus, you know, the whole, you know, stealing George Harrison's wife away from him and shit. So interesting stuff. But yeah, I mean, Eric Clapton was a great musician. It's just, you know, sucks where his brain has gone lately. Ozzy Osbourne, Osmosis. This doesn't have that cover that I was talking about because this was relatively new at the time I got it. This was a 90s release. Yeah, like early 90s. This has Perry Mason on it. There's a couple of good songs in here. Denials is good on here. My Jekyll Doesn't Hide I like. Yeah, not a great album. It doesn't go up like with the greats of Ozzy Osbourne's like best albums or whatever, but just because Perry Mason's on here and people really like that song, and I do too. It's just kind of weird that it's about, you know, an old TV show. But then again, you know, Floyd the Barber from Nirvana is also about an old TV show. Tool, Undertow. This is probably my favorite Tool album. This one has, you know, Prison Sex. It's got Sober. Yeah, I mean, it's got a lot of the big early 90s Tool songs. So, yeah, kind of needs no introduction there, but that was kind of like the heyday of when Tool had all their cool stop-motion music videos and stuff. Jack Off Jill, Clear Hearts, Grey Flowers. Excellent, excellent album. I don't think they're around anymore. I think maybe the lead singer follows me on Twitter and has for a while. I don't know if that's the case anymore or not. This is almost a complete no skips album. There's some really great shit on here. Yeah, excellent album. I think they had more than one, but this is like the one that had all their big stuff like Strawberry Gashes and stuff. This was if you were depressed in the 90s or the 2000s, you probably had this album. This kind of blew up on Tumblr for a while in the early 2000s as well, but great album. This is the best of Don Henley, better known as the lead singer of the Eagles, but I always really liked Don Henley's solo career. Not sure why that is. I guess because I guess I would put a lot of his solo music into like this vague genre of like wistful regret, which is kind of a mode I always really liked music to be in. So Dirty Laundry's on here, which doesn't fit into that, but it's got Boys of Summer, it's got The End of Innocence, Last Worthless Evening, New York Minute. He does a cover of Leonard Cohen's Everybody Knows that I'm not really a fan of, but because I'm such a huge fan of the movie Exotica, it's hard for me to not just want to listen to the original version of that. But yeah, some great stuff on here. All She Wants to Do Is Dance, which, yeah, I'm not as big a fan of that one as some other ones, but this is also a CD DVD thing, so it also has some music videos and some other stuff on there too. But yeah, I always really liked Don Henley. And this is Tom Petty album Wildflowers. What do I have on here? Oh, this has You Don't Know How It Feels, which it was big that they had to blur the word joint out of the lyrics to that song to let's get to the point, let's roll another joint. I mean, it's kind of amazing in the years since how weed has been destigmatized because of various issues and things like that. But it was funny that they thought they had to blur out the word joint on MTV and VH1 at the time. This also has You Wreck Me, which is a pretty good song. I remember it was used in the trailers for this Tom Hanks directed movie. God, what the fuck was that called? I don't know. I never saw it. It was like a was it Lewis Crown or Thomas Crown or something? Larry Crown, yeah. It was with him and Julia Roberts. I never saw it. It got bad reviews, but I distinctly remember all of the commercials had You Wreck Me as the soundtrack to it. Yeah, there's some good stuff on here. It's not like one of his best albums or anything. I'm surprised I don't have the soundtrack to She's the One, because that was, I really liked some of the music on there. Again, this is another Parabel album. Again, this is also signed, so I guess I own like 3 Parabel albums. Trying to remember. Oh yeah, there's a sequel song, because they had a song called Kiss the Flag as Evans Blue, and this one has a song called Kiss the Flag, the Widow, which, you know, I'm not a military supporter, but still a good song. Yeah, some good stuff on here. I keep saying that a lot, but sometimes that's all I really have to say about an album. Like, oh, it's good stuff. This is the best of Journey because I love my '80s stuff. Yeah, I mean it's Journey. I mean it's got like all the basic hits. It's got "Don't Stop Believin'," "Faithfully," "Any Way You Want It," "Separate Ways," which is from Tron Legacy. That might be my favorite Journey song. It's got "Open Arms." I thought "Open Arms" was a Steve Perry solo song, but I guess it's a full-on Journey song. Um, but yeah, I mean it's got "Who's Crying Now." It's got all the basic Journey hits on it. So yeah, yeah, I love my '80s music. So here's what I was talking about: Kitty Brackish. Yeah, this is kind of their big like blow up album from the mid '90s and whatever. Because this has um, the song Brackish, right? Is that actually the name of the album? No, the name of the album is Spit. The song is Brackish. I've been fucking that up the entire time. But yeah, Brackish was the big thing. But there's some really good shit in here. Scarlet, Spit. Yeah, Spit, that is a song on here. But yeah. Yeah, it's very early 90s and how it looks. Breaking Benjamin, Dear Agony. I really like Breaking Benjamin. They're probably like as time goes on, they're probably one of my favorite bands from like that new metal era or like the late new metal era. This one is not one of their better albums though. I think their solo on this or their single rather was "I Will Not Bow." I forget that was attached to a movie. I can't remember which one, but it wasn't. Yeah, it's all right. I think there's a song on it. Yeah, Dear Agony's on here. That's pretty good. But otherwise, this is one of their weaker albums that I own. The soundtrack to the movie Little Shop of Horrors, one of my childhood favorites, probably an all-time favorite movie for me. It's got a couple songs that were deleted from the movie. There's Don't Feed the Plants, which is in the director's cut with that extended ending, but it's not in the theatrical cut. And The Meek Shall Inherit is not in the finished movie. It's just a deleted scene. Because yeah, originally it was obviously it was that black and white Roger Corman movie that was made in 2 days. Then it was turned into an off-Broadway stage musical, and then Frank Oz turned it into a movie, and the movie is one of my all-time favorites, so that's why I own that one. In Utero, Nirvana. Again, I've talked about Nirvana. Funny thing about this is that I used to own it on cassette tape first. So this is one of the few albums that I owned on cassette and later bought on CD many years later. The reason I own it on cassette was because a couple days after Kurt Cobain died, I just walked into, well, I mean, when I was 10, so I didn't walk in alone, but I walked into this local, like, small-time record store and just asked for the last Nirvana album on cassette, and I got In Utero. It's kind of weird to sell the album to a 10-year-old kid that has the song "Rape Me" on it, but yeah. What was it the song "Milk It"? Yeah, the song "Milk It" I used to listen to a lot, and "Scentless Apprentice" is on here too. "Scentless Apprentice" was in an episode of Lost. All Apologies, Heart Shaped Box. Yeah, I mean, great album. Is this a better album than Nevermind? Some people might say it is. I think it comes close, if it's not. We were just talking about this, but the Big Bad Ricky Springfield is this is his greatest hits album. Yeah, I also read his memoir, but yeah, Jesse's Girl is on here, but there's some other stuff in here. Don't Talk to Strangers. Yeah, the weirdest thing about Rick Springfield is that because he was like this teen heartthrob in the 80s, I thought he was a teen in the 80s, but this guy was fucking in his early 40s when he was on like Tiger Beat and stuff in the 80s. That was really weird. Like I just assumed he was like maybe in his 20s or something to be this teen heartthrob. No, he was full on in his fucking 40s in the 1980s. That's crazy, man. Oh, I said I wasn't going to show Burt CDs, but I will show this one. This was the Evans Blue. It was going to be the third album before they kicked Kevin Madison out, but the title of it was going to be The Stage is Set for the Revival of an Anthem, and it had 13 songs on it. So, yeah, I did burn it and download it, so even though it's unofficial or whatever. I got that. Rob Zombie, Educated Horses. I think this was his third solo album. It's got the song Lords of Salem, which became one of his movies later. It's also got the song Devil's Rejects on it. This had some good stuff on here. Foxy Foxy's a good song. Yeah, I mean, it's not as strong as his first two albums, but it's still a good album. It's still got some good stuff on it. Breaking Benjamin Phobia. This is better than the other Breaking Benjamin one I showed. This one has Diary of Jane, which is one of their big ones. It also has Breath. Yeah. Evil Angel. Yeah, there was some stuff. I listened to this album quite a bit. I might like their first or their second album more, which I think have still yet to be talked about. But yeah, Diary of Jane might be their biggest hit of all time. I don't know, or maybe it's So Cold off their second album. Another Three Doors Down again. What is this one? Oh yeah, this one had Citizen Soldier on it. Yeah, this one's not very good. Citizen Soldier was used in like a National Guard recruitment ad that would play at the Regal Cinema I worked at for a while. Well, if it's that... well, no, it didn't play at the Regal because this came out in 2008, so this would have played at the Showcase Cinemas. There was this, and there was also... they also played Warrior by Kid Rock as one of those ads. Those are both fucking shitty-ass right-wing nationalist songs. Yeah, I guess this should have been a hint when they did that Citizen Soldier song that they were right-wing. Oh, well. Another canceled, Marilyn Manson's original album, Portrait of an American Family. I don't know, I just found Cake and Sodomy to be a really funny one. This is also the one that has My Monkey, which is the song that had lyrics from Charles Manson on it. So, yeah, he was trying to be quote-unquote edgy even then. This was definitely like a more raw, less polished album from other stuff he did later. I don't know. Again, I still have kind of a hard time listening to Marilyn Manson these days, but... Oh, Sheryl Crow, The Globe Sessions. Sheryl Crow, not Crow. What is this one? Does this had Every Day's a Winding Road on it? I forget. Anything But Down. Am I getting through? Maybe that's something. Oh no, this has My Favorite Mistake on it. Okay, I knew this album had like one single on it that I liked, and the rest of the album wasn't that much. But it's My Favorite Mistake. It's the first track on the album. This is also one of those CDs that has a DVD extra. Like, probably can't see it here, but it has the enhanced CD logo, and it also has the QuickTime logo on it. Also has a Rock to Vote logo. So was this an election year? Maybe. Yeah, I mean, not as good as some of the other albums she released. There we go. House of a Thousand Corpses soundtrack. Yeah, I was dying for this movie to come out because of all the stuff. I talked about the release of it earlier. And eventually this soundtrack was released a couple weeks before the movie came out, and I ended up buying it at a Borders Books, another store that doesn't exist. Borders and Circuit City were responsible for a lot of my CD collection. But yeah, it has Rob Zombie did most of the songs for the movie itself. So it's a lot of that. It's also got Slim Whitman's I'll Remember You and the Ramones' Now I Want to Sift Some Glue and stuff, but it's mostly just, it's basically a Rob Zombie album at the end of the day. So, yeah. Murder Rad. Happy I have that. Another Marilyn Manson. This was Antichrist Superstar. This was the kind of the album that's, because it had the Beautiful People on it, this is the one that really catapulted him to stardom. I didn't buy this till I was a teenager, but I distinctly remember kids in middle school having this. And it was kind of seen as taboo and stuff. And obviously there was the time that he performed The Beautiful People on the VMAs, and that was like a lot of like parents and stuff. So I think that was the first time my mother saw Marilyn Manson perform. I distinctly have a memory of watching it on MTV on like a Saturday afternoon on a replay, and that was there. But yeah. Okay. And this is Seether. What's the name of this album? Finding Beauty in Negative Spaces. This is the one that has Fuck Me Like You Hate Me on it, and Fake It. I think Fake It was the single, but then Fuck Me Like You Hate Me was the one that picked up online for obvious reasons. What was this from? 2007. Yeah. That's a pretty good album. It has kind of a similar art style as like the Jack Off Jill album that I have too. The soundtrack to Armageddon, not a very good album. I mean, a lot of people in the generation below me, so like Gen Z, really likes I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. I probably liked it at the time, hence I got this album. but I really don't like that song anymore, especially because I mostly just associate it with the really cringy scene from the movie where Ben Affleck is making animal crackers dance around Liv Tyler's body. It's like, oh, the gazelle. And she's like, do you think anyone else is doing this very same thing, this very same moment? It's like, I don't know, but if they're not, what are we fighting for? And the fucking jets or whatever are flying through the air. All that Michael Bay shit. Anyway, Journey's on here. There's a couple Aerosmith songs, ZZ Top, Bob Seger, Sean Colvin, Bon Jovi. So it's not a terrible album, but it's not that good either. Oh, it actually has the Animal Crackers audio on it too. That may have contributed to me finding it cringe. This is the first Jerky Boys album. I think that their second album is still their funniest, but this one had some good stuff in here too. I think I bought this. Yeah, I got the second album first, and then I went back and got this after I became a fan of the movie. Haven't watched the movie in forever. Don't know if it holds up, but yeah. This is a fun 2-pack. It is a 2-pack with the soundtrack to Reservoir Dogs and the soundtrack to Pulp Fiction. There's also like a little like interview booklet or something in here. Yeah. So it's got a little interview booklet, and then it has the 2 solo CDs for the Reservoir Dogs and the Pulp Fiction soundtrack. Both of the soundtracks have music from the movie, and they also have little like dialogue things in there. So I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's Reservoir Dogs has "Hooked on a Feeling," "Magic Carpet Ride," "Stuck in the Middle with You," and the "Lime and the Coconut" song. Pulp Fiction's got that theme song, that surfing music in Town. It's got Jungle Boogie, Let's Stay Together by Al Green. I mean, there's really great music in both movies, obviously, so, it was fun to get the 2-pack. I believe the 2-pack was a birthday gift. I don't remember from whom, but I do believe I got this because I asked for it for my birthday. And my local Circuit City always seemed to have, like, a copy that wasn't sold, so I don't know if that's the one I ended up getting. Tiffany Greatest Hits, which is kind of odd since she only really had one hit album. But I was always a big fan of Tiffany. I Think We're Alone Now, which, again, falls into that thing where if your one big hit is a cover song, you're probably not going to have a great career because that is a cover. Oh yeah, there's another song, Danny. Danny's a good song, too. I actually like some of these songs a little bit more than maybe most people. But yeah, I always like Tiffany. You can find me dancing to I Think We're Alone Now like Giovanni Ribisi in Ted 2. It's another Alice in Chains album, Black Gives Way to Blue. I don't remember much of what's on here. I think this was one of their newer albums that I just picked up because it was like, hey, Alice in Chains is a new album. Yeah, I don't think I remember a single one of these songs, but I own it. The soundtrack to Saw 3. I own this. Does this have... It has a version of Hello Zep, which is called the Shithole theme here. But let's see. It has All That Remains, Static X, Slayer, Lamb of God, Disturbed, Blue October, Drowning Pool, Avenged Sevenfold, Bullet for My Valentine, Opiate for the Masses, Mastodon. So it's got some new metal. It's got some heavy metal. Got some emo music, so that's why I bought it. That's that kind of stuff. Static X was just much like Rob Zombie. Static X was on like fucking every soundtrack for horror movies back then. This is the soundtrack to Planet Terror, the Robert Rodriguez half of Grindhouse. I already showed off the Death Proof half. Is this mostly a score album? Yeah, this is mostly a score album. Robert Rodriguez did the music for it itself, but there's also a handful of actual songs because it's got Too Drunk to Fuck by Nouvelle Vague, which is recently the name of what's his name? Richard Linklater's making of Breathless movie, which I haven't seen yet. Yeah, so mostly Robert Rodriguez score, but I own that. Let's see. Buck Cherry 15. I'd hate to know what the reference to 15 is nowadays, but and if you're thinking, oh, did he buy this because of the song Crazy Bitch? Yeah, that's exactly why I bought this. I bought this specifically just for the one song Crazy Bitch, which is track 7 on here. I think I liked a couple more songs on this, but Buck Cherry was pretty much just a one-hit wonder for that. It's getting a little dark in here. I don't know if I'll put the light on. I indeed put a light on. So yeah, Buck Cherry. They didn't really go anywhere. This is an Ozzy album, Down to Earth. This was one of his later studio albums. Was this about 2012-ish? Am I seeing that correctly? No, probably not. It's probably closer to 2001. I don't remember this being that good. I think I like the song Dreamer, which is one of his slower, more ballady type songs. But yeah, this is a later Ozzy album. Not as good. Another OTEP album, House of Secrets. So I really did get into OTEP around that time. Don't have as much of a strong remembrance of what any of these songs are, so I probably haven't listened to this album in a long time. Also an enhanced CD, which seems a little late to be doing that kind of thing. Is there a copyright on this? 2004. It's alright, so maybe not. I like the cover, though. Cool. Continuing with my love of the 80s, this is the greatest hits for Robert Palmer, who died very young, in his 50s. But yeah, it has some of his solo stuff and then some of his stuff with the Power Station. But I always really liked his music. So, you know, Addicted to Love, Simply Irresistible, Get It On, Some Like It Hot, Some Guys Have All the Luck, which I think the Rod Stewart version of that is more popular. Respect Yourself, yeah. I Didn't Mean to Turn You On. Yeah, really good stuff on here. Actually, there's two versions of Addicted to Love. There's the original and then there's a 97 version. I don't remember what the difference is between those, but 17 tracks on here, and yeah, I always really liked Robert Palmer. I don't think people talk about him that much these days anymore, except for the famous music videos, which not Sheryl Crow, Shania Twain would later parody at one point. Breaking Benjamin, We Are Not Alone. I think this is their second album. I might be mistaken there. Yeah, this has So Cold, Simple Design, Break My Fall, Sooner or Later, Breakdown. Yeah. It's a really solid album from Breaking Benjamin. One of their better ones. And then I think this is their first album, Saturate. What does this have on it? This has Polyamorous. This has Natural Life. This has Shallow Bay. Home. Yeah. This is probably underrated. I think this is underrated as far as in their discography, because I like a lot of these songs, even though most of them weren't singles. I think maybe Polyamorous was there. Yeah, because there is a music video on here. It has the QuickTime logo again. So, yeah, I guess that was the single. But, yeah, Saturate. That was good. Green Day, American Idiot, because if you hated George W. Bush in the war in Iraq, you were just assigned this. They just gave it to you in the mail. Yeah, so American Idiot, Holiday, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, Wake Me Up When September Ends. Yeah, that had all that kind of stuff on it. It's a pretty decent album. Some of the lesser-known tracks I'm not as big of a fan of, but I like all the major ones. Greatest hits of Bon Jovi. I do love my 80s. Yeah, so this has all the good ones. Living on a Prayer, Give Love a Bad Name, Wanted Dead or Alive, Bad Medicine, I'll Be There for You, Blaze of Glory. Yeah. I used to have a boss at one of my old jobs who was a gigantic Bon Jovi fan, who like went to see him in concert like numerous times and everything too. But yeah. Not above liking some Bon Jovi. Lady Gaga, Born This Way, an album that I don't think is anywhere close to the quality of The Fame, which is why I never bought another Lady Gaga album after this. What is this? Judas. Judas is a good song. Trying to remember what else I liked on here. There are 2 discs on here. Born This Way is an okay song. I think I liked Judas mostly on here, yeah. Oh, and The Edge of Glory is on here. Okay. There's a couple good songs on here, but I didn't like this nearly as much as I liked The Fame, so after that I just didn't buy any more Lady Gaga. I just listened to the singles. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More with Feeling. This was the famous musical episode from season 6. And again, much like all the other stuff, when I got into Buffy and Angel, I got into this, so I got the soundtrack. And then Evans Blues' second album. So this was the last album they released while Kevin Madison was still writing their songs. The pursuit begins when this portrayal of life ends. Some great stuff on here, too. Not quite as good as the melody and the energetic nature of Volume. But there's some great stuff in here. In a Red Dress on Alone, Shine Your Cadillac. The original Kiss the Flag on here, My Damsel, Caught a Light Sneeze, which is a cover of a Tori Amos song. So they covered Sarah McLachlan on their first album, and they covered Tori Amos on this one. Dear Lucid, Painted, The Pursuit, yeah. Not quite a 10-10 album. This is maybe a 9-10 album. There might be one or two skips on here, but otherwise a great album as well. So I certainly wouldn't want you to skip this one if you end up getting into Evans Blue from this video. No one's going to do that. Dope. This is called Felons and Revolutionaries. I don't know if people still remember Dope, but they did a cover of You Spin Me Around, which is also on the American Psycho soundtrack that I showed earlier. But this also has the song Debonair, which I believe is in the original The Fast and the Furious, and a song called Everything Sucks, which I think people know. Yeah, I always liked the sound of Dope. Yeah, they had other albums, but this was the album that had the songs I was most familiar with. So, yeah. Like that artwork on the cover. Or on the back cover, rather. And Sonic Cults, which I talked about earlier. So I did buy a full-on pressed CD for Sonic Cult, which, again, they were originally the band Pete. They recorded these songs plus another 3 that are not on here. And it took years and years for them to finally come out by a no-name record label that probably doesn't exist anymore called Rat Pack. Hopefully that doesn't have any connection to Brett Ratner, because that's the name of his production company as well. And it came in like a fucking CD-ROM sleeve, so that's why I had to put it in a jewel case, and I took the little track list and cover and just kind of taped it into the center here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It has 12 songs, so there would have been 15 in total. The songs aren't nearly as sexual as the titles would have you think, because the titles of some of these songs include Higher Colonic, Ass Lick, $1 Million Hole, and Deeper. The song Deeper was actually my song that I put on my MySpace profile for years. Great song. Yeah, I really, really love their first album, and I really love this album. And as far as I know, they didn't do anything else after this, which I understand. I mean, it didn't really break out anywhere. But yeah, so Pete/Sonic Cult. It's probably easier to find them if you Google this, because Googling Pete doesn't get you anywhere. But outside of Evans Blue, if there's one band I would recommend people who have never heard of it to check out, it would be Sonic Cult/Pete. Oh, another canceled guy here. Jared Leto's band, 30 Seconds to Mars. This is one of the CDs I have that has a slipcover for some inexplicable reason. Yeah, I did like this album at the time. I still, was it, what's the song? Beautiful Lie, The Kill, the bury me, yeah. There's some good stuff on here, but, Jared Leto's a creep. So... and then this is another Ozzy album where it's the original cover with all this stuff. This is The Ultimate Sin. Trying to remember if there's anything decent on here. I think this was also one of his weaker albums. Shot in the Dark's on here, and that's one of my all-time favorite Ozzy songs, and that's the last song. Yeah, there's only 9 tracks on here. I don't know. When you have less than 10 tracks, I start to think it should be an EP, but I also think Michael Jackson's Thriller only has like 9 tracks, so... and then this is the last CD I have to show you, which is the greatest hits of the band Garbage, called Absolute Garbage. Because I just liked all their big hits. So Only Happy When It Rains, Stupid Girl, Number One Crush from the Romeo and Juliet soundtrack, Push It, I Think I'm Paranoid, The World Is Not Enough, the Bond theme that they did, Bleed Like Me. Yeah, that was all their big hits. So I got that. So outside of this, I have a bunch of burned CDs. Some of them are just compilations, and some of them are full-on CDs that are burned. Like, my buddy Andrew is a huge Swiftie, so he burned me a couple Taylor Swift CDs. 1989, which is the one I like, and then I think he also gave me Midnights, which was the... either Midnights or Reputation, whatever was newest at the time he burned it for me. I think I also have Kesha's album that is TikTok. I think I have that one. Plus, I think some Metric and Silverstone pickups that are burnt. And then there's a couple Blu-rays or movies that I have that have a soundtrack for this, the CD soundtrack included. Like I know Glenn Danzig's Veronica has a CD soundtrack, and then a lot of the movies I own from Severin Films have that, like Robo War and Blood for Dracula and stuff like that. But otherwise, that is my CD collection. So you can tell where my musical taste mostly was between the years of approximately 1994 and let's say 2013. I actually think I might be missing another Lisa Loeb album that's not here. I might have it somewhere else. Because I also have one other Lisa Loeb album that I have signed, and I didn't see it in any of these piles, so I might have that full album somewhere as opposed to just the signed booklet. But aside from that, and I think that Lisa Loeb album that I'm thinking of but can't remember the name of might have been the literal last CD I ever bought, because I think I actually bought that in the state I live in now versus Rhode Island. But yeah, so that was kind of fun to just look through and see what albums I actually really like from here, which ones I bought because I only liked one song, which ones I bought because I liked the artist's previous album but didn't like this one. How many of these are involved people who have been canceled for any number of reasons or are otherwise problematic. Anytime you look at an old collection of something, there's going to be something like that. But anyway, if you watched most of this or any part of this, thanks for coming along on the journey. I just kind of felt like doing this for no reason. So have a good one, everybody.